Welcome to the Tuesday, February 11th, 2025 meeting of the Ayer Planning Board. This meeting hearing of the Ayer Planning Board will be held in person at the location provided on this notice. Members of the public are welcome to attend this in-person meeting. Please note that while an option for remote attendance and/or participation via Zoom is being provided as a courtesy to the public, the meeting hearing will not be suspended or terminated if technological problems interrupt the virtual broadcast unless otherwise required by law. Members of the public with a particular interest in a specific item on this agenda should make plans for in-person versus virtual attendance accordingly. This meeting will be live on Zoom. The public may access the proceedings by joining Zoom meeting ID number 978-772-8220 or by calling 929-205-6099. For additional information about remote participation, please contact Danny Ruiz, Town Planner, at druiz@ayer.ma.us or 978-772-8220, extension 144 prior to the meeting. Before we approve the agenda, I just want to draw your attention to a couple of things. One, you may notice that the table here is crowded. That's because this is a joint meeting of the Ayer Planning Board, and in a few minutes, the Conservation Commission will open up their meeting as well. And this is to address the first item on the agenda. I want to point out that we have quite a bit to accomplish this evening on both the conservation analysis side for Lincoln Hills and for Stratton Hill. I am going to restrict discussion of Lincoln Hills to the conservation analysis only because the conservation analysis is what's presented before us and what's on the agenda. So there will be no discussion of other items, including yield, lot sizes, stormwater. All that will be deferred until the plan is actually received and the process formally begins. With that said, do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Seconded.
Any discussion? Hearing none. Ken?
Yes.
Julie?
Yes.
Kathleen?
Yes.
Nathan?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. The agenda is approved. Now I believe that the Conservation Commission needs to open up their meeting.
All righty. We would like to call this meeting to order. Conservation Commission, February 11th, 2025. Is there a motion to approve the agenda as written?
So moved. Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed nay. Do I have to do a roll call for since it's Zoom?
No, since they're not. No one's not on Zoom.
Okay.
On the board.
Yeah. Because we haven't done Zoom meetings in quite a while.
Yeah. It's only if someone is on Zoom.
Gotcha. Very good. Okay. Then off we go.
Okay. I will kind of give a quick breakdown on this. So currently what's before the Conservation Commission, this is going to be their third meeting on this subject. It is the conservation analysis for the Lincoln Hills project. It is the initial step as part of our OSRD regulations. One key point that I want to make sure that everyone knows that this is not going to be a subdivision. This is going to fall under our site plan review section of the OSRD. So there will not be lots, individual lots. It's just going to be one parcel. So I just want to make sure that everyone understands it's not going to fall under our subdivision rules and regulations. It'll fall under our site plan review regulations. So this project, the Conservation Commission received the conservation analysis on, they had their first meeting on January 9th, had their second one on January 23rd. The conservation agent, Heather, did provide, who's on Zoom, did provide the commission as well as the planning board with the draft recommendations regarding the conservation analysis. So tonight, the way I envision this going would be the Conservation Commission is going to review and discuss the recommendations that are before you, and then discuss all of the recommendations that are within here. And then at that point, once the board has discussed all of their recommendations and findings, the board would vote on the recommendations. And then what would happen would be the planning board would then take up at that point reviewing the recommendations and findings and determining which ones would be taken over as part of the document that would lead into the applicant's application. It would be submitted as part of their application. They will have had to have shown that they've met those findings on their site plan and within the application itself. And it will be included as part of the decision as well. So just want to make sure that everyone understands
thank
that
you.
kind of how the process is going.
Very, very helpful. May I ask a question, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
We received an edited version this afternoon. Can you just point out what the difference is between the two forms?
Yes. So I believe this one was. There are a couple of them that were added. Jess, were you the ones that made the comments, the edits on this?
Yes.
So the first one is the third bullet point.
Mhm.
That one was a kind of edited from the first one.
Mhm.
The fourth bullet point as well. I mean, we're gonna. I mean, the Conservation Commission is gonna go through these.
I appreciate that. I just having read the first one and and not having a chance to read the second
I can
one.
summarize it.
Be clear on where the changes happen.
Yeah, Jonathan.
I
has
could
that
summarize
too.
it really fast.
Perfect, thank you.
There are really two big ones. The first is that it replaced the third bullet where about location with a more detailed paragraph about the 50% minimum and their questions regarding the location of the stormwater materials. And then the other one is the issue of a third-party peer review of the stormwater management system. Those are the two changes.
I might,
Yes, I'm sorry, Jess.
I might add that one of our suggestions was also to consider connectivity to the neighborhoods
Correct.
Oh yeah.
Thank you.
north of the.
Heather,
I think that was in the first.
do we want to ask Heather if she has anything she wants to?
That was
Yeah, Heather, you want to do a kickoff before the commission deliberates?
I don't know if that's absolutely necessary. I think when they received, I sent them the draft recommendation about middle of last week. I received edits back from Jess yesterday, reviewed those edits, fixed them all up, sent those out to the board for final review. They were fine with all those. I had no other comments. And then they went over to Danny yesterday in order for them to be sent to the planning board to review. So there was 2 additional ones from the original one that you were sent, and then a couple of them were just cleaned up and added more detail to. So it wasn't too many changes, just with the 2 additional bullet points and then just some minor modifications.
I think the board should just. Thanks.
Yeah, it's in your court.
You want to go through it point by point?
It's your call how you want to proceed, John.
We don't need to go through this first part, I don't think. So why don't we start on the proposed development? The first bullet point, since no priority conservation area map was submitted as part of the conservation analysis, the commission's recommendations are based only on the submitted analysis and site visit. Second page, first bullet, commission agrees with the notion, trying to keep the development within the previously disturbed areas. These areas also contain more invasive plants than the undisturbed areas. The commission would otherwise have recommended that the planning board require this invasive vegetation to be removed anyway. Third bullet point, the commission continues to have concerns about the inclusion of surface stormwater management systems within the OSRD required 50% minimum designated open space. In the case of John Carroll Reserve, this designated open space, there was approximately 55% of the parcel, meaning that the inclusion of the surface basin there still left 50% untouched. In the case of this proposed development, the location of a basin that we were shown would take up part of the 50% minimum open space. The commission was also concerned that access for maintenance to this basin would, by the provisional layout that we were shown, likely have to take up additional open space for a road, and wondered if this was in alignment with the spirit behind the creation of the open space as we define it from a conservation point of view. Next bullet point, there are a number of large trees in the vicinity of the stormwater basin location that the commission was shown on the plan and observed at the site walk. Whatever the planning board decides, the commission recommends that the location of the stormwater management system be adjusted or reshaped where possible to avoid taking down these trees and that all measures be taken to protect them. Next bullet point, given the Commission's concern with the stormwater management system, the Commission requests, if possible, that alternative LID low-impact development practices be considered to reduce the size of the stormwater management system. Next bullet point, given the steepness of the slope on this property, the Commission recommends that the Planning Board seek a third-party peer review of the stormwater management system and the potential for altered drainage patterns to detrimentally
Detrimentally.
there you go. Affect nearby residences, Harvard Groton Road itself, Pine Meadow Conservation Land, all downhill from the proposed project site. Next point, within the proposed development, steps should be taken to replace some of the vegetation.
Those on Zoom, please mute your mics. Thank you.
Again, within the proposed development, steps should be taken to replace some of the vegetation removed during construction with native vegetation using a mixture of ground cover, scrubs, trees where applicable. General recommendations and consideration. Given the presence of ledge throughout the property as well as steep slopes, the proposed building envelope appears to be the best location for development with the least amount of impact to the rest of the property. Next bullet point, the northern edge of the proposed development envelope is very close to the ledge outcropping located on the adjacent property. Efforts should be made to push development back to create more of a buffer between this unique feature and proposed disturbances. And third page, the existing house lot along Groton Harvard Road within the potential open space would be best used as a pocket park with parking, picnic tables, possible play structures allowing for the different uses within the open space. Next bullet point is the Planning Board should consider the question of public access to the open space in this OSRD from the High Street/William Street side of the project, not just from the Groton Harvard Road side. The town owns land on William Street and the potential for connectivity to this should be considered. Next bullet point, the acquisition of designated open space along Groton Harvard Road would make it feasible to approach nearby residents to the north in between the high school and the subdivision to see if they would be willing to grant easements or allow for conservation restriction on the undeveloped back portions of their property in order to connect trails on the school property. Next bullet point, within the Planning Board subdivision regulations, in the landscaping subsection, a requirement is listed to have all existing trees that are 12 inches in diameter or larger shown on the plans. The Commission hopes that the Planning Board will look at this plan and consider that each one of these trees is vital to the landscape before making any discussion to allow removal of these trees as part of the development. The Commission understands that removal of trees in this part of the development and construction, but would like to see development constructed in such a way that minimizes clear cutting and the need for future replanting and retains as many trees as possible in order to preserve the landscape. These recommendations are herewith respectfully submitted to the Planning Board. The Commission is happy to discuss these with the Board at any time if there are any further questions or concerns. Yikes. That was a lot. So, this is what we recommend. Discussion.
Don't they need to arrive at a vote?
Well, so I guess they would have an internal discussion amongst them, like if there's anything, additional that they want to add in there, or this is the formal vote.
Any further discussion or recommendations, concerns?
After my read of the draft and then Jess's edits.
George? Jeff? Jess?
And just would mention the inclusion of conservation restriction signs along the backyards that will abut the conservation restriction, as we normally do. No dumping, et cetera. That those should be center in the back property line, not on the corners.
So I would say that would probably be as part of our decision when we write it.
Yeah.
If you want to include it as a recommendation, that's fine, but it's something that I will definitely be
Yeah.
including as part of
Yeah,
it.
that's fine.
We've just found in the past that there's been people who ignore the corners and.
Oh, yes.
Not everyone gets the message.
It's definitely something that Heather and I have been discussing. We've dealt with this we had an incident with Shaker Mill Pond. Curly Circle has had it. So it's something that we've seen, that we know, and we're definitely going to implement ways to make sure that doesn't happen.
Great. That's great, thank you. Is Heather still with us?
Yes, she just went off camera.
Heather, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm here. I'm just trying to make dinner at the same time for my kids. My only item, I don't have any other changes or any comments. Just to Jess's point with the signage in the back of the properties. If the commission's concerned with that, I suggest that one or two of them stick around for the Stratton Hill discussion. And then, other than that, I don't think they have anything. I appreciate the planning board reviewing these and taking them into consideration. I understand that, development happens and that's what we have to look at, but these are hopefully pretty reasonable in the eyes of the planning board.
Eyes of the Conservation Commission, you mean?
Yeah, I think she meant.
Well, yes, but
Yeah.
the recommendations are going to the planning board
Right,
for
right,
them to
yeah.
accept.
And I just wanted to make sure that everyone also knows that, so this is just the conservation analysis, so we're very, very in the beginning stages of this project. There's going to be a formal submission that will come before the planning board, and at that point, I know a lot more of the residents' concerns will be able to be answered at that point. When the actual project, full site plans, stormwater, everything, all of that kind of information, which I know most residents are looking for, will be able to be answered at that point. Currently, we're just restricting this to the conservation analysis because that's what the process within our OSRD says. So I just want to make sure that everyone understands why it's being restricted just to this.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Motion to approve the, I'm sorry?
Said I don't believe so.
Okay.
Well, should we approve or should we take into account planning board? We don't, okay.
All right, is there a motion to approve the conservation recommendation to the air planning board as written?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Passes unanimously.
Thank you, Conservation Commission. I have a question to my town planner about process at this point. How should we do this? Is it bullet by bullet findings vote, or really each time go for a vote?
Yeah, so we would discuss each. So I would discuss each of the bullet points that were discussed and recommended by the Conservation Commission, and then go discuss which ones will be included, and then we'll make a final vote as to
That's what I
which
mean.
ones.
And then, so we can deliberate point by point,
Yep.
but would not vote each time, but vote at the end and say, we'll have a list. These we agree with, these we
Yes.
reject, and we have a vote on that, on that
Yes.
set.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I would have the Conservation Commission leave their meeting open just so that in case the board has any questions for the commission, they can ask the commission that, unless the board, the Conservation Commission feels they want to close their.
So let's do it.
Yeah,
Sorry,
and
I'll let you guys
well,
get it.
that's why I was putting
we'll
it.
get through it tonight.
I just want to make sure everyone understands
lot of
the
material.
process.
Yeah.
Okay, so the first bullet point I would suspect would not be very controversial at all. Says there's no priority conservation area map submitted as part of this conservation analysis. Commission's recommendations are based on the analysis site visit. Fine. I want to make sure I'm reading the one with the correct language.
Yeah, I don't want to come up with the works, but my understanding of the OSRD is they will have to do a priority, or they will not have to do a priority conservation map
So,
on the project through
so-
our regulations.
So, you're talking about, let me just pull this up. This was raised to me by Beth Sudemeyer, actually, in a phone call today.
chance that this will not be in the bylaw, but it could be in there.
Yeah, so it's
I'm assuming
yeah,
it's in our
so it's in
regulation,
our regulations, and so the way, so the submittal requirements as part of the conservation analysis,
Mhm.
it talks about including a map and field investigations.
Mhm.
So they included the field investigations. They did include maps within the actual conservation analysis, but
Sorry, can we pause until I can't hear what you're saying?
Whose phone was that?
she just left a little second ago. Oh, that's Ann Gagnon.
That's her phone.
Thank you, Janet.
Sorry, that threw me off.
That's what everybody.
So the priority map that was they're saying that was not included in this one is the designation of priority preservation areas.
Yeah.
That's based on, it's something that's similar to this. So they didn't provide an actual map. They had an description of it within the conservation analysis.
I seem to recall reading the description of it, but they did not. There's no actual physical map.
Yeah.
Okay. Does that meet the requirement?
Based on how I read it, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
So it just says that identifying the primary conservation areas. So after determining the existing conditions, the next step is to determine which areas should be preserved. So additional guidance for the layout of open space areas is found within section 4 of this document. Primary conservation areas may include 2 types of areas. So it's just more of a description of what it is. I don't see a requirement of an actual plan. But it does talk about descriptions up in the
That might be a future
the
edit
submittal requirements
of the regulation. Some
Yes.
Thank
So
you.
there's a lot of these edits that Heather and I have been working through that are going to be have to be implemented because as Heather and I are doing this this is our first project through the OSRD together from the beginning to the end to be able to do it to the end. We're seeing a lot of these little hiccups and things that are written within the bylaw that will need to be changed so that things function properly.
Or things function. Yeah.
Okay.
Got it. Yeah. Thank you.
Good.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
can you summarize the primary, like where the primary area is, and just so it's clear?
Yes. So, actually, you know what? I'm gonna call up Mark Arnold for this one because he's actually from Goddard Consultant. He's the one who actually did the report for the conservation analysis.
So good evening, my name is Mark Arnold with Goddard Consulting. I'm a senior wetland scientist with Goddard. Been doing work in the wetlands for over 10 years. So to answer the question that was raised, which was on the priority area for preservation, when we looked at the property, we looked at all the areas and determined what areas are the most functional in terms of native habitat. So in terms of just a quick summary, the areas of most disturbance on the property are, of course, the single-family house down here in their backyard. Disturbed makes every sense there. There's also the existing house that's in here that's dilapidated with a detached garage and the driveway that goes down there, and the old cleared area of lawn, forest area around that property that's overgrown over the years, but it's grown over with invasives. So this area is heavily disturbed, this area is disturbed. So everything else around it was kind of a question of balancing, okay, what's natural, what's native, and what's unique to the area versus what's more of a classical New England forest. And so in terms of classical New England forest, you have classical New England forest up and around the edges here. Down here, we actually had a more diverse species of trees. And that was really the only unique thing we really found on the site in terms of vegetation was diversity of species. Where was the most diverse vegetational area? And that was actually down in this corner right here. That was really the most diverse area. Everywhere else, and there was also some good areas over here that we saw that had a lot of good like low-growing shrubs that were berry producing for wildlife habitat. Otherwise, very traditional upland forest that you see here, back here, along the edges here, all very traditional. It's nothing that is particularly unique that you wouldn't see in a classical forest. So in terms of where do you preserve the most unique landscape in the area, you avoid the areas that are disturbed already because of disturbance and invasives, and looking for more unique and diverse habitats. And so therefore, basically the southern portion of the property, or eastern portion of the property, is the priority area because of diversity of vegetation, basically.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Helpful.
So, I'm speaking to my board. Any deliberation or comments on that very first bullet in the recommended area?
No.
No.
Not pertaining to.
Let's move to the second bullet. This one, the commission agrees with the notion of trying to keep development within the previously disturbed areas. These areas also contain more invasive plants than the undisturbed areas. The commission would otherwise have recommended the planning board require this invasive vegetation to be removed anyway. Any comments or conversation about that bullet? Seems reasonable to me. Everyone I see nodding heads. Jeff nodding, Jeff nodding, Who's nodding? Good. Nathan?
That's fine.
Kathleen? Okay. This third one probably will take some more discussion. The commission continues to have concerns about the inclusion of surface stormwater management systems within the OSRD required 50% minimum designated open space. In the case of this proposed development, the location of a basin that we were shown would take up part of the 50% minimum open space. The commission was also concerned that access for maintenance to this basin would, by the provisional layout we were shown, likely have taken up additional open space, and wondered if this was in alignment with the spirit behind the creation of open space as we define it from a conservation point of view. Discussion.
So
Is there a point of fact that's important here?
Yes.
Okay,
so
thank
the
you.
first point is, and it is stated in here, is that within the state law as well as our regulations, stormwater, surface stormwater, like detention basins, retention basins, stuff like that, is allowed within the open space. I do understand that there is a push, we would prefer that it not be, but it is allowed with, by right within the open space.
Comments?
I got a comment.
Please, Ken.
So, I'm interested in this because of the fact that it says the provisional layout we were shown. I haven't seen any layout of where this is. So I'm
Mark was
having,
just,
I'm
Mark was
struggling
just showing the
with
plan.
discussing.
Yeah,
Mark was just showing the plan.
Excuse me?
Mark was just showing the plan.
No, that plan he showed was just showing the open space and,
No, there's a.
but did it show the stormwater
Yeah.
basin? All right, say it again.
To the chair, would you like me to show the plan more clearly for the members to see?
Yes, please.
So,
This is the same plan that
so
you
this
guys
is-
saw,
this-
right?
this- Yeah, so this is
Okay,
the
now I
plan
get it.
that we presented to the commission, just to show them this is the provisional, draft layout of the development and the basins, and again, this is all preliminary before we have formal submittals of the design and engineering. So the development is clustered up here. That shows a stormwater basin in the center area there, with further drain pipes, and then an overflow down here where there's sandier soils down there. So the current conceptual plan, and from talking with the engineer, there is the intention that they do need this basin down here, at least in terms of stormwater. Again, they're still working on full design of this. So again, this is not full design stormwater. So this is a conceptual, what they think might be enough to provide capacity, but until they run the calculations and have all the plans together and can feel like they can stamp it professionally, this is what they have. But they do intend to put a stormwater basin in the open space. They felt this location was the best location to put most of the stormwater, because of the flat topography, which means there's less grading, which means less disturbance and less impact to the open space. Was locating here versus anywhere else, there's more grading because of the slopes. So that's why it's there. So again, provisionally, this is the primary location for the stormwater that is expected to come through when the final designs are done. And again, primarily focused there because of flat topography.
So Jess, that's the plan you guys, when you saw, the
Yes.
commission saw? So-called provisional plan.
Thoughts? Jeff?
So as
Jeff, no, I'm sorry.
no, please go ahead.
Nathan, go ahead.
With the new stormwater regulations, is an applicant required to handle the water on their entire parcel, even the water that's in the open space, the stormwater? Right, when they do a stormwater calculation, are they responsible for the developed area, or are they just responsible for the entire parcel?
They're for the entire parcel. They're not allowed to, to meet the stormwater management standards, they have to go through all of the criteria. They can't, properties, you can't allow more water on other people's properties. Right. You can't, you gotta meet all the peak rates, there is a long list of what they have to comply with to make sure they meet the standards, which is also within our stormwater management permit requirement. So when they submit, when the DPW does a review of that, they would have to make sure that they meet and comply with all that.
Thank you.
So go ahead, Jeff.
My comment was this. As I read this comment, and by the way, thank you very much for putting this together, guys. I enjoyed reading this I really did enjoy reading this over the weekend. The version that I saw before. I read this as the stormwater management is partially in the open space. And as I read this now and have seen the proposal, it's actually all in the open space. So I read this and said, oh, it's over the line. And now I'm reading, and now having seen it, it's all over the line. So that's all. I just wanted to say that, and we'll have to hammer this out and figure it out. And, thank you, though.
So, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think what the board is being asked here is, would we make that imposition? The recommendation is that we ask make a condition upon the applicant to not have the stormwater system within the 50% open space. I'm going to show my cards and say, no, I don't believe that that's a reasonable condition to impose on the applicant for this project. It's by law, they can put it there, and I think that given the nature of the site, it's reasonable. That's just my opinion.
You looking at me?
Well, anyone else wants to speak? Because this is it. We're going to come to some findings tonight. So
I think I'd like to see that plan again, because when I envisioned the stormwater detention basin, I typically wouldn't see it that size. So that did surprise me. Can you bring up the plan again? Oh, the provisional plan, I should say. So we're sitting here tonight looking at a provisional plan, which is
weird.
That's a pretty big disturbance. I think, is that your major concern as a Conservation Commission, the size of the disturbance as well?
I'm not sure that, not really.
Not really?
It's that we thought that under the regulations, you're allowed to put a detention basin in the open space,
Right.
if the applicant provides more than 50%.
I would agree, though. I'm sorry to interrupt with Ken. That I think in my eyes, I think it's the amount of disturbance that's also allowed in there. Hence, when you go further down in the recommendations, there is those provisions to try to protect the trees in that area, because that's in that same location. So there is quite a bit of disturbance that'll be caused in order to do that, which is hence for the other request for LIDs to try to be used to reduce those impacts.
I think the thing that is more important, and I'm looking at this from a distance, based on what our consultant from Goddard said, is not only you have the basin, you have the disturbance for the trenches, you have all the piping. So we're talking about a lot more than that basin. The grading on the edges of the basin, and so you're talking about running a system of pipes all the way down almost to the Groton Harvard Road. That's all disturbance in the open space. So you guys didn't talk about that at all as a recommendation? Were you considering as the whole system, or were you just considering the basin itself, I guess is my question to Conservation?
No, we weren't. In fact, it's in another bullet where we talk about the access, more than likely is coming from Groton Harvard. So you'd have to create access up
Right.
here to be able to maintain it in addition, correct? So
Right.
we don't anticipate that that's coming off here, unless maybe it is, but at least what we've seen, there's a lot more disturbance.
Thank you, Mark.
Yeah.
So while we were out on the site, there is an existing old gravel way. I don't know if it's gravel or something, but there's kind of like when you're out there, it was like an old driveway that they used to use. I don't know how long ago, but all the trees are cut down from there from a long time ago. So there already is, some way to access it going off of the western portion of the site. So coming off from where the development is. So they wouldn't need to clear more trees. They could access it through what's already been cleared in that driveway that goes down that way. So they wouldn't have to come up off Groton Harvard Road.
Yeah, but that's only for the gravel road potentially, not for all that piping system.
No, yes, I just wanted to address that one.
Yeah, you're talking about the sort of the access.
Yeah, that old access road. I don't know how long that's been there.
Right.
I'd like to make an important distinction, that what we're deliberating on is the principle of the inclusion of it and how much space would take in the 50%. It's not on whether we like this particular stormwater management design, because we don't have an official stormwater design submitted to us. So there will be deliberations about the nature of that stormwater system and design, et cetera. I think it's premature at this point to get in the weeds of where it's going to go and how it's going to be accessed because we simply cannot know right now. Yes, Jess?
Okay, so, it's ultimately up to the planning board's decision. But I just did some computer searches earlier, which I had done a few years ago when we looked at this as well. And if you look, what immediately comes up on the state's model OSRD bylaw is this phrase, and I just would like to see your interpretation of it. Wastewater and stormwater management systems serving the OSRD may be located within the open space. We agree with that. Surface systems such as retention and detention ponds shall not qualify toward the minimum open space required. And
So-
you see that in some other towns repeat that in their OSRD bylaws.
Ours does not say that.
So this is why this is.
So
a source
imagine,
of
yeah, this is,
discussion.
that was a question, that was a question.
And I would add as a resident, when we did a little informal poll of some of our neighbors earlier, and what do you think when we talk about open space, when people voted for the open space bylaw in Ayer, did they think that that open space was open space for public use or would include infrastructure such as this? So we just raised that for discussion.
Quick question for Mark. Mark, do you have the calculation of how much percentage is open space versus going to be developed?
It's, so we have 51% open space versus 49% developed. In terms of this blue line here basically being 49% and 51%.
So the provisional plan that we're looking at right now does not include the detention basin in the developed space.
Correct.
Go ahead, Joe.
Sure, thank you. I see there's two levels to this question. The open space residential design, OSRD, was put in place to preserve as much open space as possible in our community in a quickly dwindling resource. When the bylaw was put together, and this may be an assumption I made, it was always clear to me that infrastructure could not be counted as open space. Whether or not that's how the bylaw is written. So we're at a position now where it could possibly be moved if the development was to change shape. I don't think we're at the end of the road with this. But I just want to say it is, and sometimes, Jess, you and I find we're on the same wavelength. But yeah, as I said earlier, I read this paragraph, I said, oh, they're poking their nose over the line. But in a situation where it's hard, 1% difference between occupied and unoccupied space, and this is infrastructure being placed out there, I think we're gonna have to take a look at that as a planning board.
Okay.
Would you care to, it's Mark, right? Would you care to estimate, Mark, how large that disturbance might be on a percentage basis of the open space, including the piping?
Including the piping, that's a real hard judgment call because
10%,
I mean,
8%, 11%.
I really don't want to speak to that because I'm not an engineer. I do have an engineering background, but as not a stormwater engineer, I mean,
Just a size thing.
there is a, I mean, again, yeah, I mean, it's over 5%. I would estimate based on the plan area, but until the engineers draw like the actual expected limits for the trenching, it's there. I mean, everything is, again, after construction's all naturalized afterwards, so it's all vegetated. There's no hardscapes within the stormwater features here. So, but yeah, it's over 5%. But hazarding higher than that, I risk being in error.
Actually, Jess is actually right
What?
on the way you stated that. It's right.
Thank you.
And again, you are identifying,
Yes.
So, could you repeat what
I was
I'm
the
right?
author.
Yes.
I like to be
I'm okay
reminded.
with saying I'm wrong. So location of stormwater management basins and facilities. So within section 4 of design guidelines, it states that for location of stormwater management basins and facilities. Stormwater basin, detention and retention basins, and related infrastructures cannot be located in the open space areas that are needed to count towards minimum 50% open space requirement per the OSRD provision. Stormwater basins and related infrastructure can be cited in extra open space, provided that the extra open space was not used for the earned density bonus units under the density bonus section.
For clarification, Dan, where exactly are you reading that from?
Yeah.
So this,
State or?
no, this is
No,
our
that's ours. That's
OSRD
ours.
regulation, the open space residential development regulations, design and guidelines adopted in June 14, 2022.
All right.
So this is, thank you, because this was, we hammered this out
So
over
this is
long
not
hours of
allowed.
discussion.
We haven't know.
Yeah,
It is
and
allowed
so,
if they had
More than 50%.
more than 50%.
and so, in my mind, this becomes a conversation about yield and where it's going to be placed, how many units and yield and stuff like that. So
We're not there yet.
we're not there yet, but I want to say, to me, it's an open question. But I disagree that it's allowed as open space under our bylaw. Thank you.
Okay, with the clarification there. So is the idea that the board feels keep this recommendation?
Oh, yeah.
Just for clarification, what you just read comes from our OSRD guidelines or regulations?
Regulations. We don't have guidelines. We have
I thought you
regulations.
used the word guidelines a minute ago, I'm sorry.
It's regulations and design guidelines.
Yes.
Design
We have
guidelines,
regulations.
okay.
These are the regulations,
It's
design
a
guidelines.
regulation.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Elsewhere in there, we have design guidelines in the same document.
That is the design. That's one of the
Yeah.
design guidelines.
Okay.
Thank you.
Let me just get to that point.
Anybody? Julie?
I think it's,
Yeah,
so
this is the design guidelines.
Nathan?
Nathan?
the applicant has to provide 50% open space to qualify for OSRD.
All right.
Which so they have 51%. The question is
It's uncertain.
How much it takes up.
how much of the stormwater is within the open space. So if you can't count that towards the open space,
Can't count towards
then
the
you
50.
don't. Correct.
Okay, so just for clarification, we're gonna take the recommendation of the Conservation Commission regarding section, but then it's gonna be incumbent on the design team
Yes.
to alter
Absolutely.
their,
To meet the regulation.
To meet it.
to meet the
That's right.
requirement.
Yep.
Everyone, that's the way I understand?
Yeah.
No?
Yep.
Mark, there's a comment?
Yeah. So the way
I mean,
so
Mark's gonna
No, agreed. So go ahead, settle down. I just want to make another point on the calculation though also, but go ahead.
I was just gonna say, so like everything that whatever you vote as a finding,
Goes
the
into the
applicant
decision.
goes into the applicant's application
Okay, thanks.
when it comes before us.
All right.
Can we move on to the next one?
I think
Just quickly, with regards to the way the calculation is currently determined based on the provisional layout that we just saw, I believe, I thought I heard Mark indicate that everything to the west of the blue line was part of the calculation, and east of the blue line was, the other portion.
Mhm.
If you do notice, on the eastern side of the blue line, there was a ton of retention along the homes along the eastern side of it that was also basically in the open space area, which
Oh, you
was
mean
the poking the nose over I was talking about.
Oh, you mean the grading? You mean the grading?
Yeah.
Retention wall.
yeah, grading. slash
Grading, yes.
retention.
Yeah. So
Oh, okay.
I believe grading is. I'll double check on that right now.
We do
But I
focus on this
believe
fairly.
Grading is.
Yeah. Thanks.
I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah.
Provisional, but we know.
I mean, it's early for us to try to look at that level of detail on the drawings right now, but they did show a lot of retaining walls, basically.
Understood. Thanks.
One more comment, Mr. Chair. An applicant, it's their prerogative, but can they request waivers on regulations?
Yes, they can. Next one. There are a number of large trees in the vicinity of the stormwater basin location that the commission was shown on the plan and observed at its site walk. Whatever the planning board decides, the commission recommends that the location of the stormwater management system be adjusted or reshaped where possible to avoid taking down these trees, and all measures be taken to protect them. Comments?
I think it's almost part of the same discussion that we had the applicant's gonna have to take a close look of the whole system.
Yeah.
And come back to us and show us how that's gonna work. And I think this might be part of the same conversation.
And also, there's another conversation later on about trees that we should talk about, but the identification of trees of certain size of DBH is an important part of the process. We've done it on the other ones in the past. We've walked the properties, discussed them. We understand trees have to go, but not all trees. Some specimens are really worth keeping. We just don't have that information just yet.
So staying on this point, how do you feel about the recommendation, okay?
Seems like
Go
I'm
ahead.
doing all the talking. I don't want, I'm trying to pair it up with the one before, because I think when we look at the detention system and all the trenches, or what do we need to do, we'll look at the same piece.
That makes sense.
These are interrelated based on what they have, but I think the comment will hold wherever the detention basin goes.
Or gets reshaped.
So I would recommend keeping it.
Yeah.
That's a consensus? Okay.
Anybody?
Next bullet, given the commission's concerns with the stormwater management system, the commission requests if possible that alternative LID, low impact development practices, be considered to reduce the size of the stormwater management system. I think to make this clear, we need to have some discussion of what the LID might possibly look at. I don't know who wants to, do you want, I mean, it's so hard to describe because we don't have a plan, but what is example, like?
I mean, rain gardens are examples of LID. Country drainage is an example of LID. What it asks for is basically ways to reduce how much impact you have on as a development with stormwater with the stormwater system. This, you're going to already have catch basins. They're already based on the design that you would have catch basins if you're going to have, a stormwater basin, because it's got to get there. You can't really, I mean, you could try to use country drainage, but that you have curbing, so that kind of prevents it as well. So there's a lot of that goes into it. I mean, it's possible that the applicant could look at trying to see if they could do it on certain parts of the project, but it's on large developments, it's something you don't typically see.
So
If I might, there is a whole section of the stormwater handbook that includes a section on LID development. This could be anything from, when you see in a large parking lot, we've seen that the tree box filters, those are considered LIDs because it takes the pre-treatment out. So stormwater goes directly into where it needs to go with pre-treatment. There's a whole different subsection in the stormwater handbook for LIDs. There's several different kinds. It's the same request we had in the Stratton Hill recommendations as well.
Ken?
I think we're gonna do this anyway. When we get to the level of the design and look at all the drainage, in all probability, we'll consider whether it lands there or not, if they show it to us or not. We don't have to make a decision. I would take their recommendation, but in basically, we're gonna look at it as a board when we get there anyway.
Yeah, and that's why they said that if applicable. We can't require someone to do LID. It's not. It's
When we get to
outside
that
of the
level
planning board's
review,
purview.
undoubtedly we'll- The only other question I had to suggest to Danny was, when you were looking at the other OSID regulations and design guidelines, was there anything in there about LID?
There is a section within there.
yes. And this is a burgeoning.
Because I'm pretty sure we'd take a look at it no matter.
The solutions for stormwater are coming down the road fast and furious. With the amount of development going in to areas that are sensitive, there are solutions out there. Huh? There are solutions out there.
So the recommendation is to consider it, it's not an obligation. That seems reasonable.
Yeah.
We can have that discussion with
Okay.
the applicant during the process. That seems reasonable. The next bullet, given the steepness of the slopes on this property, the commission recommends that the planning board seek a third-party peer review of the stormwater management system and the potential for altered drainage patterns to detrimentally affect nearby residences, Groton Harvard Road itself, and Pine Meadow Conservation Land, all downhill from the proposed project site. No, Ken, I'll start this
Go
one.
ahead.
Typically, the experts that we have at DPW are entirely well qualified to make a review. And the only times we've asked for third party is if they're so swamped and with other work that they can't get to it in a timely way to meet our obligations, but I don't see that happening. The issue is, why would we go to a third party and impose that when we have qualified people in the Department of Public Works to do this?
So I was gonna ask the question a different way.
Okay.
Over the 10 years or so I've been doing this, we've used our own DPW as our third-party reviewer. And they've said in times, we can't do it, we're not qualified, or we're too busy. So, I mean, I go to other parts of the state, and they talk about how wonderful our DPW is for stormwater. So it's just one of those things. So I don't know if that would be acceptable to the Conservation Commission or not. I do like the idea of a peer review on this. There are a fair number of houses on Groton Harvard Road that have been there for a long time, and I think there may be impacts upon them that are unseen at this point, just given the topography there.
Are you advocating, are you saying for third party outside the DPW or the DPW?
So
The
that's what
question
the
I
third
have
party
is the DPW a qualified third party in this situation?
So let me clarify. So they're the town. They're going to represent they're going to
I
review
understand.
the project for the town.
Yeah.
They're not considered a third party review. A third party review is 53G account
Yep.
that goes out to. So it's a different
And
process.
I'm perfectly happy with that. Yes.
With which one?
Maintaining a requirement of a third party review.
Okay, so not having the DPW do it.
But both.
The DPW is going to weigh
They're
in
gonna do their
on this,
initial, yeah, they're gonna do that.
but I don't want to lose the option of going to third party. What I was describing is what we've had in the past is Dan and his crew have stepped up to the plate more times than not.
Yes.
And this may be a situation where they can't do it for multiple reasons, or they feel unqualified for a reason that's in the field that I don't know about. So I want to maintain the third party review.
As a possibility, but that's if the DPW says that they don't have the capacity or what have you. There's a big distinction there. If the DPW says yes, would you want a third party review on top of the DPW's review?
I don't think that.
Now I do, now I am ready for a comment. Thank you, Jeff. This could be a risk-related situation. I don't know if you thought of that, Jeff.
Yeah.
Should we be burdening the DPW and having them take the risk that their review is sufficient for the town's benefit? Or would we be better off to put a person of a third-party review, a specialist in this kind of work, in that position, and then have them come back with an unbiased, clear
So
determination?
I have a question.
They
for
could
you.
both do it. I'm just saying that there might be a benefit to us getting oversight from a outside third-party consultant,
So
rather than depending on the effort that would have to be put in by DPW and the questioning directly to DPW. So we would be sitting at the table questioning DPW whether they,
Which is
could
what
be me.
which is what our typical process is. What we've done in almost every project that I've been here since
Right.
for about a year and a half. We've done big projects, we've done little projects. I feel that our DPW is well versed in the stormwater management. I trust in Matt and Dan. I think they're it's not a lack of trust. I believe that Matt and Dan and the DPW are qualified enough to be able to do this. This is it's a big project, but it's not a complex stormwater system.
Right, but this,
And the complexity is a big portion of it, because it's a large stormwater basin, yes, but it's not a complex design. I'm just telling you my opinion. And my typical experience, third-party reviewers aren't for, we haven't really done it for stormwater management. It's for traffic peer reviews, for site design, we've done it for that. But I don't think that it's necessary for the stormwater review, but that's up to the board.
so this is where unfortunately I'm gonna disagree with that planner. And one of the things you said, Danny, was you didn't think it was a complex design. I don't think we're at the position where we can make a comment on the design, because we haven't
True.
seen the design.
That is true.
So we're nowhere near commenting on the design right now.
Yep, that's true.
I think even if the design shows to be simple, that might not be the answer, because it's a complex site with a lot of slopes. Beyond our capacity to understand the design, we have to really do some real digging to determine where that water's going, because we know now that it's coming down that hill and flooding properties down below. So it may be a simple design, it may not be a simple design. I'm gonna lean towards Jeff and recommend that we take their recommendation for third-party review.
I do want to keep it. And in simple terms, what's happening now is sheet runoff in a vegetated area.
Once it gets clear.
49% is going to be hardscape.
Yeah,
See, what I would
You're not going
prefer,
to get sheet runoff in a vegetated area. We're going to be collecting it and focusing it. And I don't want the neighbors on Groton Harbor Road to suffer. And I care about the conservation land. I care about Flanagan's, Fletcher, Pond, whatever you want to call it. But I also care about the residents who are currently there.
and so would the DPW, when they do their review, I'm sure that they'd be very diligent in that.
So
What I want to point out is, we always have
DPW.
the option of getting the third party. What this is an obligation to get the third party. That's the difference. I would prefer that we go to the DPW, and that it's at our discretion, whether, based on what we see in the plans, whether we think it's complex enough to justify the third-party review. That I prefer, rather than having the obligation imposed on us.
Yeah, it's always within the planning board's jurisdiction to be able
It's not
to.
imposed on us.
Well, it would be, we'd have to say, yes, we absolutely want a third party, that's,
It's imposed on the applicant.
I know, but imposed
As
on
a
the
board as
process.
well.
Yes.
In the process. I mean, the board is always open, it's within your purview to always require a third-party review for anything, any portion of the application. So, but this would require you to,
okay.
Well, it just says recommends. to
Yes.
spend time.
which, by making it a finding, they'd have
That's
to do
right.
it.
If it's a finding, we'd have to do it.
Okay.
So where do we stand with that now?
I'm gonna make a motion in this particular item. Is that possible?
You're beating me to it,
I
sir.
think,
Okay, I'll let Jeff.
I was gonna say move
Or you wanna wait for the whole?
I think we want to do that at the end, so maybe like maybe,
the last one.
I think everyone's gonna have to talk about this one. And-
I am in favor of what you're saying, Jonathan, is that I see why this is probably gonna come to a conversation, and we've had those conversations with Dan before. So I would prefer, and I'm glad we're talking about it now, because it highlights the needs and the concerns. But I support what you're saying, Jonathan, which is to wait, and
Wait.
continue with the process,
What did you
rather
say?
than require the third-party review now.
Yes, that was my, so for clarification, Ken, my stance is that, as she said, we always have the option required to ask for it. That always exists. What I don't want is being obligated to ask for it, to request a third-party review. That's what I object to. Because we may look at the situation and say it doesn't require that. That's my point.
Then we voted no.
Well,
At that point in time, we can make a change.
Yeah, but you see, but you can't, because it's a
Yeah.
finding now.
It's a finding
It's
now.
already
Once it's a
set in.
finding, we'd have to do it. We'd have to ask it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, Jess?
I just, you know, as Heather and I both, oh, actually I wrote this one, but I think the intent of the language of recommends was not obligatory.
It says recommends, that's what I thought.
Recommend, it's not as strong as you're saying we're imposing this as an obligatory.
Would you
Requirement.
consider
It says recommends.
changing the word from recommends to consider, and that's it? But yeah, I'm not gonna die on this hill.
Jess, can I ask you a question for clarification? The wording Pine Meadow Conservation Land does not belong there.
The wording of what?
The next, it says Groton Harvard Road itself and the Pine Meadow Conservation Land, but that's up gradient, like way up the hill.
High Meadow?
Yeah, it says Pine Meadow Conservation Land on there.
There's no drainage going towards Pine Meadow. It's like a quarter mile up the road,
Okay, yeah. Well,
so that has to be scratched out no matter what.
Nathan? I thought you, did you?
Oh, yeah, thanks for asking. I think, to echo what Ken said, we do not have a definitive plan. I do not want to get bound on, and I appreciate, I understand, these aren't obligations. This whole thing is a recommendation.
Yeah, right.
Yes, but it's going to become a finding that based on how our OSRD is written, it says
Yes.
the findings whatever the recommendations become finding, the applicant must comply with.
Right.
Yeah, are these going to be, yeah, but it won't be, when it becomes a finding, it won't be the board recommends, it'll be the board requires.
That's right.
Right, so
That's the point.
we would,
That's it's.
in general, we're going to get into details. There's going to be trade-offs. I'd like to have the ability to make those trade-offs when we're in the detail discussion and not make what I would consider premature decisions before we even have an application.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did you have a question or comment, or wanted to add something, Kathleen?
I guess my question would be to, if I guess, the Conservation Commission. When you were drafting this bullet, was there anything else in mind that prompted the third party in addition to the DPW that we could consider in the future? Like, was it the complexity, the size?
I think first and foremost would be the existing residence downhill, the steep slope, and then secondly, a roadway, and thirdly, not Pine Meadow Conservation Land, which is up the road. Okay. But basically, existing residents that have been there, and the road, public road, steep slopes, a lot of ledge, changed drainage patterns.
We went through this most of last summer. Across Groton Harvard Road from the house that's there that's going to be removed is an open space, a small chunk of open land that spends most of its summer underwater from sheet flow off the hill at this point. So it's not the impact on the west side of the road. It's the similar impact on the east side of the road. Water enters the road, it becomes sheet flow for the across the street neighbor issues also, because that side of the road, I happen to live there. That also has a lot. So I have no difficulty at all doing the requirement, but I think the Conservation Commission has put thought into this, and they want to make a recommendation. I think I can support that.
Let's go into the next bullet. Within the proposed development, steps should be taken to replace some of the vegetation removed during construction with native vegetation using a mixture of ground cover, shrubs, and trees where applicable.
We're gonna do that.
That's standard. Okay. Given the presence of ledge throughout the property as well as the steep slopes, the proposed building envelope appears to be the best location for development with the least amount of impact to the rest of the property. Yep. And I don't see anyone object. Yep. The northern edge of the proposed development envelope is very close to the ledge outcropping located on the adjacent property. Effort should be made to push development back to create more of a buffer between this unique feature and proposed disturbance. Is there any way we can see that?
Yeah, so I'm gonna talk about it right now. So actually, if you see right here up this line,
Yeah.
right in this area, that's the ledge cropping right up here. It's actually on the assisted living property. It's not on their land. It was they originally did own it, but they gave it to the assisted living as kind of like a buffer that's not going to be developed. So it's actually not going to be impacted.
Yeah,
Not applicable.
I would say this is not applicable and drop it.
Well, Mr. Chair.
If I might, just on that real quick, I don't mean to interrupt. When you look at the plan that the Conservation Commission looked at with the building envelope and proposed development, the development went right up to that property line where that outcropping is located. The comment on there, the recommendation is to just try to consider to push the development away from that property line just a little bit, as that is a very unique feature to this area. There's lots of ledge on there, but have that 20, 30 feet of exposed ledge there, to just try to keep more of a natural buffer on both sides of the property line, not just on the abutting property.
So you think of this as a suggestion or a request to make to the applicant?
It's so I look at all of these are all everything that we would like to see done 100% for the most part. It's up to the planning board to take these, and if you see them as 100% fit the way they're written, that's great. If you see them needing a little bit of tweaking, that's 100% for you to do. I personally would like to see the development push back to have that whatever was, I don't know what's in our regulations for zoning as far as setbacks for the edge of property line, usually what, around 30 feet?
Yeah, that's a question.
To see something along that, to have that actual setback requirement used for the development from the property to create more of a buffer zone for this. So the conservation has we have a 50-foot no disturb. for a wetland, I would see this as a, you know, a 50-foot, 20, you know, 30-foot notice, you know, buffer from the edge of the property line for development on this one, or even clear cutting, just to see more of a natural vegetated area left there for that.
I got a question. How do we even know where this line is?
I don't think we can require that.
Heather, was that line
See it on
established?
Right at the base of
No, what I'm getting at is, you were in
It's
the
up here.
field looking at this. Did someone give you that line, that property line?
To the chair, can
The
I?
property line shown right there on the plan.
Okay,
No,
I'd
you
like,
say
Hold on.
please, excuse me, Ken. I'd like to recognize Mark, please.
So just for clarification of where we are talking about, so this is the existing conditions plan of the property. So the feature that the commission was referring to is this feature right here, which you can see is off the property right here, and that's the feature that they're concerned about. It's roughly 30 to 50 feet based on the scale. Yeah, 30 to 50 feet off the property line already, and again, preliminary design grading at the end has some grading here at the end and some here, and there's that feature again. And limits of work are still being established, but at the moment the grading preliminary is still again ongoing, but that's the area that's being discussed in terms of shifting stuff away from it. But again, that's the feature that is being discussed right there.
My understanding of yours, we don't have too much setbacks, no.
And we can't.
Well, we have some
We have
flexibility.
zoning
We have
setbacks.
flexibility with some of the setbacks, exactly. If I may, Mark, I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, that's a truck turnaround at the end on
It's
that
a
plan?
hammerhead, yeah. it's a
Correct,
hammerhead.
fire.
That's a hammerhead for a fire turnaround, thank you very much.
So
We can't create spot regulations, though. We can't just invent
think
a
we're
new
there.
regulation from a distance from ledge. It doesn't already exist. I'm confused here.
So Jonathan, if I could just add another point, I guess what Heather is essentially getting at, as part of the conservation analysis and the priority habitat that was supposed to be identified, existing features are supposed to be highlighted while they're providing information around the property that they're developing. There's adjacent, abutting features.
Yeah.
And this is essentially what we're getting at, is that this would be something that's unique to the area and would be nice to create some sort of a buffer around. And I think that's really what Heather's trying to get at.
And so I do understand that. The problem is it's not on their property. So we would basically be enforcing something that's not on someone's property to comply with something on their property. I think that's kind of outside of our purview right there.
It's the reverse of Park
I mean, it's kind of like with a wetland. When a wetland is off property, you don't have the authority to go on there and flag it. You just can only go to your property line.
Okay. Enough with that?
I would, this is a recommendation for a feature that's not on the property where it's gonna be discussed in the OSRD. If we were to approve this general recommendation considerations as a total document, we've just given the applicant something to do that they have no control over.
Right. Okay.
So are we gonna strike this recommendation?
I believe that's what I
Yeah,
would
so I
recommend.
am keeping
I
track.
just wanna be clear.
There's
Yes.
one that
Okay,
we
good.
still need, I still need everyone to go back to, but
We still have one to go back to.
Okay.
For now,
Let's see if we can get through
And
these.
it's not because we don't like the recommendation. It's just, we deal with, as I say to people all the time, we deal with lines on paper, so.
The existing house lot along Groton Harvard Road within the potential open space would be best used as a pocket park with parking, picnic tables, and possible play structures allowed for different uses within the open space. And my understanding is that the applicant is amenable to this, and so I have no issue with this.
just so that everyone knows, it's been discussions with myself, Heather, and the Parks Department, Sarah Ernst, the director. We went out on site, looked at the house lot in question that would be potentially used as an open space park, pocket park area. The Parks Department, Sarah Ernst is in agreement. It would be a good location, with there being already a sidewalk there, potential for these, this development having a trail down to that. So it does serve multiple purposes, and it's something that at least Sarah Ernst, myself, and Heather have been on board with.
Everyone, okay? Next one, the planning board should consider the question of public access to the open space in this OSRD from the High Street Williams Street side of the project, not just from the Groton Harvard roadside at the top. The town owns land on William Street, and the potential for connectivity to this should be considered.
So, can I just?
Oh, go ahead, yeah. No.
Yeah. So
I was just yawning. I'm
oh, sorry. Nope. Sorry. The William Street parcel that's being spoken about is this one right up here, where this, where the.
We call that the racetrack.
There you go.
We call that the racetrack.
There is a huge slope there, very, very steep, which I don't think could be actually used. I mean, there is potential that I guess they could put some kind of a connection point here, but then from that point, the town would have to take it over from there for the rest if there was anything for future, because it's town-owned land, so a private developer is not allowed to do anything past that point. It's something that I think I understand where the commission was coming from to thinking about that, but I think because of the fact that this is just a giant slope and how steep it is, I don't know if it's feasible.
And if I may, is that Cambridge Street on the bottom?
Yeah, Cambridge Street here, and this is Wachusett here.
Yeah.
And then
Neither one of those
Thornton
streets, neither one of those streets have ever been completed, or actually, they were drawn out there.
Yeah, they're
and-
just paper streets right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's a piece of open space that's probably, it's a landlocked piece of open space from my understanding. It has no frontage on any current road.
So regarding this recommendation, we're okay with that, or any objection?
What do you mean we're okay with it?
I mean, what it is just, I'm just going to answer Ken's question, and I'll get to you, Kathleen. The idea that, we'd ask the applicant, would they consider? That's the recommendations, ask them to consider.
What's it, the
To
planning
do-
board should do that?
The planning board.
Well, yes, but we would say to them, would open up the access.
Well, can we get clarification?
Yeah.
Who is supposed to acquire this?
So the way it would work is the applicant, if the board were to request this, the applicant would only be able to do a trail up to their property line, and then from there, the rest would be taken up by the town.
If I
And-
may.
yeah.
I'm sorry.
I had a question for.
Yeah, we're going to get to,
sorry.
let's give Kathleen, please.
A question for the commission. So the way this is worded kind of seems to imply that this was after like road access, car access. But did you also have in mind like a footpath? Like when you say public access to the open space, like the potential to be able to access some of that by foot.
Yeah, the whole idea was foot access. I mean, you got all these people living here that are gonna go out and walk their dogs in the open space. And how are they gonna get there? They shouldn't have to drive all the way down to Groton Harvard Road.
Yeah, so based on my early discussions as of what has been proposed so far was, potentially having some sort of access coming up over here off of this hammerhead area and maybe have a connection point, because this is where the gravel driveway is. It kind of comes down here and it kind of starts getting flat as you follow along this edge of the property line. So there probably would be some sort of a connection trail down there. That would probably be where the connection point would be from that project to the actual Groton Harvard Road. But in discussions about up here in this area, I don't know.
I was just thinking, it would be terrible if somewhere down the road we came up with a good idea. But there's a house in the way. So just.
Oh, so you're proposing that you would create the trail first as a priority, and then redo the house lots around it, make sure the trail's all by itself, right from the street.
Yeah, make sure there's space there, so,
Yeah.
I mean, if we wanna have something connecting the town land to the open space, we don't wanna find that, oh gee, we should have, left some room for that.
So now I'm confused.
So he could potentially put a trail like right here.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it would only stop at their property.
Yeah,
And then
Understood.
if the town were to do something, then the town would have to handle that themselves.
Understood. But I just want to make sure we're talking about access to Groton Harbor Road and access to the Highland, to High Street. Access both directions.
Not this question.
Because
This is just
access to open space on the OSRD from the High Street, Williams Street side of the project.
Yeah.
So
That's
that would
just
be the east
up
side
here.
of this project.
Yeah, that's just up here.
Yeah, so at that side, and Groton Harvard Road side. So Danny, when you described the gravel driveway, that's going down to Groton Harvard Road.
Mhm.
And I made the assumption when I read this that we were looking for access to the racetrack. So in other words, they can go off property in both directions. I think it's a totally reasonable request.
It says town-owned land on William
Yeah,
Street.
exactly. That's why I just want, the conversation kind of went one way, and I want to
Yep.
make sure we're still talking about two ways.
Yeah, so it is the connection to this up here, this parcel.
Yeah.
We good with this?
A connection, when we say public access specifically, that does not mean a road.
No.
This means a footpath.
That's what they're
And
talking
that was your intent too. Okay.
The,
I'm good with it.
the acquisition of designated open space along Groton Harvard Road would make it feasible to approach nearby residents to the north, in between the high school and the subdivision, to see if they'd be willing to grant easements or allow for conservation restrictions on the undeveloped back portions of their properties in order to connect to trails and school property. Does this belong here?
So I understand it's something that I know Heather is in favor of, but I don't think we as a board have the authority to put that in because it's not really something that the applicant can do.
Right.
I know it's something that Heather would like to do, and the Conservation Commission, which it is a good idea, but it's not something I think that we as a board can actually create as a finding. It may be something that the board, the commission, and Heather may be able to, in the future, be able to approach them, the owners of these properties. But I don't think as a board we can actually put that in.
I apologize for that one. In listening to you guys go through this, I'm noticing that some of these I wrote are more or less findings on our aspect in regards to where the proposed open space and everything are.
Okay.
So it's probably in the wrong location, so I apologize, and I'm making notes for the next one of these we do.
Okay.
You have to forgive me, I've only done, this is only the second one, and the first one was Stratton Hill, and that one was completely different. So
Yeah.
that's more or less just like a finding on my part of
Okay.
it, and not less that's a recommendation, so I apologize for that.
Nope, that's
So
okay.
we'll drop that.
But I'm gonna editorial comment. It would be great if the kids could walk to school
Yeah.
It'd be very nice.
Oh, yeah.
through the woods.
I mean,
did.
it is a great idea when
Yeah,
you
no,
look at
it's-
the property.
It's a connectivity. It's a great connectivity.
Let's
It's
move
just-
on.
It's outside of our purview.
Within the planning board subdivision regulations in the landscaping subsection, a requirement is listed to have all existing trees that are 12 inches in diameter or larger shown on the plans. The commission hopes that the planning board will look at this plan and consider that each of these trees is vital to the landscape before making any decision to allow removal of these trees as part of this development. The commission understands that removal of trees is part of development and construction, but would like to see development constructed in a way that minimizes clear cutting and the need for future replanting, and retains as many of these trees as possible in order to preserve the landscape.
So just one quick thing. So this is kind of why I clarified at the beginning that this is not going to fall under subdivision rules and regulations. But within our OSRD, the same thing is applicable. There is a section that talks about the 12-inch trees. The only thing I would just make sure that everyone knows is that the applicant is able to request a waiver, which we have seen on several other OSRDs.
We visited the properties, identified the trees, figured out which ones are keepable, some aren't. It's unfortunate. And we've had good response from all of our applicants at this point, to the point where they actually like the fact that we go and walk and help them figure it out.
So this specifically is not just looking at the trees, it's asking for showing all the 12-inch trees and more on the plans. Is that something we're going to want to, is it required?
So that's the thing. That's why I was going to say
Yeah.
it is already within our regulations.
It is,
So
right?
we would just be
Right.
So the
reiterating.
OSRD right
I think the OSRD, already takes that into account. So I don't know if this needs to be included. I don't
It's
believe. I don't
already
believe
there.
because it's already within our regulations.
It's also in there asking that when they're spelling those ones out, that they actually be preserved. And I don't want to speak ill of the planning board, but you can look at Panther Place and Curly Circle and count how many large trees are still in existence within the proposed development area. That's what this is requesting, is that within that proposed development area, those larger trees are actually marked and actually listed to be preserved and not cut down.
The only problem with that, I would say, is so the way this requirement says, it says all 12-inch trees. This is a very large property, and so I do understand the the request for the 12-inch and large trees, but it is a difficult thing to do on such a large, it's 12 acres.
So let me ask the question. I assume that this would only be the 12-inch trees in the disturbed area, not the 12-inch trees going from the racetrack to Groton Harvard Road.
Yeah, that's how I read it as well.
Okay, I read it just the eastern port, the part on that side of the blue line that we looked at.
That's
Maybe
how
the
I would
12-inch
read
trees.
it. That's how I would read it. But I don't.
Well, we talked about the stormwater.
Yeah.
So do we recognize that this is moot because the requirement's already in our OSRD regulations?
Yeah.
Is that the understanding? Yep.
I'm good with that, yeah.
But let's just remember that the open space, we don't expect the 12-inch tree to be chopped.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, it's an assumption we make, Mark.
But
But yeah.
based on the provisional plan, we have a very large detention basin going in.
Understood. And as I said, I think those are tied.
All of the property maybe is required because it's a provisional plan. We don't know where everything's gonna end up. And I think you talked earlier about, you know, making judgments on the detention basin once it's identified, but you won't know if there's a 12-inch tree there unless you have them mark it out for you, will you?
Yeah. And if I may,
We have to do it
the
anyway.
Curly Circle
We have to do it
project,
anyway.
we went back and forth on that a couple of times because they did have to move some things around.
Yeah, so when it
becomes iterative over time sometimes.
when they make their actual formal submission at that point,
Yeah.
once we know where the building envelope is, that's typically kind of where you see that request for, okay, now that we know where it is, let's specify and let's find what we can say, if it's possible to say.
And or another site visit.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right.
Just to back up what Heather's saying, does the planning board in your own regulations try to discourage clear cutting in the developed areas scheduled for development? Because, and I think Heather, you've got the statistic, a mature tree versus new plantings a mature tree is so much more valuable to the environment, to the ecology, to pollution filtration.
So,
Yes.
Yeah.
I do agree with that. We also need to take into account the fact, so as part of the development, which is by right, when you are from construction aspect, retaining trees that are close to buildings is not very viable because roots get cut, and then at that point you're trying to keep a tree alive, and then that's what makes it that difficult, which is why it's one of those, as the project comes in and as we go out there and look and see, then it's kind of more, everything's kind of like not pick and choose, but like determined on a case-to-case basis.
Discretionary. All right.
Yes, the planning board talks
So-
about individual trees.
Where are we now with the set of recommendations? I know you've been taking notes, and I think there's something we need to revisit before.
Yes. Because we didn't really get an actual.
Which one is that?
And that was the third-party review. I couldn't get a grasp on, on where the board was leaning on that one.
Well, you know how I lean. My feeling is, we always have the discretion to ask. I don't want to be obligated.
I'm with Jonathan.
Are we allowed to make comments at all at this meeting?
After the board deliberates, I will open up, yes.
Okay, thank you.
So Julie and I have put our positions on the table. What about the rest of you?
Well, I got more of a 30,000 foot. These are recommendations. Is the intent, I'd be very concerned about voting to accept these if the intent is to convert them to hard findings, particularly because if something is not in our regulations, we can ask the applicant. And we have applicants who are very generous in accepting those requests. But my understanding is that we don't even have the authority to convert many of these to hard findings.
I think let him finish. I think just let him
Hold on.
let him finish. Go ahead, Nathan. Sorry.
Yeah, I think that's my understanding is two-part. One is, do we have bylaw or regulation that supports this so that it can be a hard and fast rule for the applicant. If not, then we're making a request. And the other is what I mentioned earlier, is there's going to be a lot of information, and we have values to balance. There's a housing need in the state. This is within a half-mile of the MBTA community intentional area, so it's a desirable area to have residents. So we're just gonna. It's not. It's going to be. There's a lot of considerations in order, and to have some things already carved out would make it, in my mind, is premature.
So in this particular, if we're going point by point, Nathan,
Mm-hmm.
would you feel then, are you saying that you'd be, so where do you fall? Do we should be obligated to impose on the applicant obligation for the third-party review, or should we wait and see when we get a stormwater submission and then have the conversation about whether a third-party review is necessary?
We should wait. We should wait and see. We should also wait and see what our DPW says. If they say mea culpa, or I need some help here, which is the case we had a couple years ago. Same with the right of way to the racetrack, right? We can make the request to the applicant, but the applicant is not obligated to do that. And then to put it into a finding, I'd have a hard time.
Okay.
I think you have your answer.
Is that acceptable?
You have three people who don't want to see it go forward. Correct. I think you have your answer.
Okay.
It's not a hill I'm going to die on. I said that earlier.
Okay. So where does that leave us for drawing up a motion for this recommendation?
I'd like to go back to what Nathan pointed out to us. Can you clarify that we are obligated to make the findings, and that the findings become part of the decision?
That's right.
I think he indicated that we didn't have to.
No. I think he's asking whether or not it is, and as I indicated earlier, it does become a finding that the applicant. Yeah.
So
These become findings.
That the applicant has, when they submit, that they're complying with.
They must comply.
that's what you were asking,
Yes.
Yeah.
but you didn't.
Well, so take the right of way to the racetrack. Is that a finding?
Yeah, but that's just, we find that they can make that, they can try to put it there, that's all we find.
So it's not an obligation.
No, that one wouldn't be. I don't believe so.
Yeah,
Should
that
consider
one-
the question of public.
So then what are
Which
we?
one? Which one? I thought we had removed that. That was
No, I
how
thought we-
I read that.
You're talking about.
The planning board should consider the question on public access to the open space in OSRD on High Street, William Street, side park. Because I
we
thought
took it out?
I thought we took it out because of the fact that you can't do anything on William Street because it's town-owned land and it's a giant
we
slope.
can have a path to nowhere.
Oh, okay.
The
so,
path may
okay,
end
so
up-
maybe we have another question that we still need to ask.
Path may end up there, but is it?
I think we left it in.
I think we left it in
Yes, I
because it's
believe
just
we
for
left it in.
the
Yeah.
applicant. Obligated.
I'm fine with asking the applicant.
I'm fine with asking them
That's what
too.
it
Yeah.
But I'm not
I just
okay
want to
with.
make sure that we're all on the same page. So Danny,
I know, I'm gonna
you
go
would
through.
remove two.
Yep.
Um,
I've removed.
so the two that, so.
3 removed.
The last
Yeah,
two.
I was gonna go through which ones were removed.
Let's do it
Once
quickly.
we got to the first one, once we dealt with the first one, which was determining on the third party review.
Okay, so we're taking
My
that out.
understanding is we're not going to.
Correct.
Ask them to seek a third-party review in this set of findings.
That's how I.
And
that's
we're gonna
how
remove the words Pine Meadow Conservation Land from that.
Well, so the whole thing is gonna be removed.
It's all removed.
So, but yes.
We want to be careful that we always have the obligation, we always have the ability to
Always
ask
do.
for that
Yes,
third
yes.
party.
Of course
That's
we do.
part of your purview with.
We always
So
do.
we're
That's
taking away the edge of the
The
findings at this
obligations,
point.
yes.
So that bullet point, as of now, is removed. The next one is the northern edge, where the ledge outcropping is.
Yep.
The one I thought, based on what I heard, was the planning board should consider the question on the public access. I thought that was removed, but I guess
The next one.
it's, we're leaving that in?
Please.
That's, you know,
May I just add a point on that, I mean, getting hooked on the language of connecting to the racetrack is not correct. it's also those neighborhoods on that side.
I use that to,
Yeah, you
it's
mentioned
just an
too.
example of where
Yeah.
it would go. It's a visual that's
Final two.
Was the
I know,
final.
I know, I just wanted to make sure.
So we want to leave it in.
Okay,
That's-
all right.
I think the understanding is leaving it in because we understand it's not an obligation. It's a discussion on public access that we're going to have anyway
Yeah.
when we get to the plans.
Okay, all right. The next one was the acquisition of the open space along Groton Harvard Road. That one is not going to be included as a finding. And then the last one is also not going to be included as a finding because it's already
It's
within
already
our
in our
regulations.
regulations. Okay.
What about I thought it was about the second one, the last one on page 2. The proposed development envelope very close to the ledge.
Yep, I already said that one.
Yeah, he did mention that, Ken.
Yep.
Yes, it's,
Yep. So, bullet point 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9, and 10 will be included in the findings. They're not numbered,
This would have
but
been 9. This would have been 9.
yeah, the numbers now.
We got 13 of them?
let me just
Dan, for clarity, we're gonna number them.
Yeah, number 9 was one of the ones you took
9 was
out.
removed.
Mine was
9, 13, and 12, and then the stormwater one, which was 6.
6, 9, 12, and 13 have been removed.
Say those numbers.
Now, we're going to have to refer to this, and there's no date on it. How do we refer to this, a document?
Oh, I apologize for that.
I moved to date it 2/11/25.
I second that.
Aye.
Yes.
Everyone, aye. Nathan?
Aye.
Aye.
Jeff? Kathleen? Okay, great.
And the final document, so what I'll do is I'll have
proposed by
Heather
2/11/25.
send, so I have this in Word, I will just eliminate those and make it as a finding.
So at this point,
And I'll give the applicant.
oh, was the applicant here?
Yeah, Mark Arnold's.
Oh, okay, so should anyone first, or can?
I would let them speak first. and
So what
then-
we're gonna do is, the board has gone through and had it, so Conservation Commission's come to their vote. We haven't voted yet, we're still in that phase of deliberation, but we've all expressed our opinions on the 13. So at this point, it's appropriate to see if there's comments from the applicant and then comments from the public. So I would turn to the applicant.
The other public.
Yes, and then anyone on Zoom.
Yep. So I'll ask first if the applicant has any comments that they wish, or questions they wish to make before we vote.
There's just a couple. Hi, I'm Janet Field.
Come on up. Can we get a chair for,
I'll let her sit in my spot, that's fine.
so Janet, you're gonna come up here, Miss Field?
We could make room.
Usually this room's empty.
Oh.
This is so exciting.
So, they're just so, I appreciate everybody's time and all your effort and energy, the Conservation Commission coming out to the site, spending a significant amount of time trudging through snow. It was, but I think, also very informative for both us and you, and thank you for, sharing your findings. I did want to, our engineer couldn't come tonight, but he did share with me some of his notes about the stormwater that I don't expect it to make a difference about anything you discussed, of course, but I just thought it would give everybody a little bit of oversight. He did express to me that the stormwater management systems that he designed were, based upon the regulations. He said that the Massachusetts regulations that are the basis for the town of Ayers, and this is not my area of expertise, so I'm simply quoting him here, that they were created by the state for the protection of wetlands. So the stormwater calculations are very extreme. He said, in fact, the air regulations go further than what the state even created in protection of wetlands. So the size of the detention basin is based upon the fact that the air's regulations are very, very stringent. So, that's where he was coming from with that. But I do understand, as the owner for the property at 38 Groton Harvard Road for the last 15 years, the basement floods all the time. I mean, the basement has 2 sump pumps running at all times. So we understand that there's water, as it naturally exists coming off that hill. And as a non-expert, it's all ledge. So there's no place for the water to infiltrate. It just, follows the ledge down to flood people's basements. So, I mean, it's our hope as part of this development that we can develop some systems to contain some of that water instead of allowing it to you know, flood basements. And that's, as everybody knows, you have designs and you do the best that you can and work with all the experts here to get it as best that we can. The only other thing I wanted to address is that we are completely amenable to creating walking trails around the property and working with the town, and however, like, we want there to be access to the open space. So however we can, work together to make that happen.
Great.
We're happy to do that. So yeah, I think those are, I don't know if you guys are allowed to ask me questions, but does anybody have any questions, or is there anything?
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Very
All right.
good, thank you.
All right.
Now, I believe earlier you had expressed the desire to speak. I'm pointing to the young woman in the pink sweater.
I do have questions.
Can you come on up? And so the way this works, can we get her a chair? Oh, good. So what you do, the way this works is you just say, hi, my name is X, your address, and then whatever question or comment you'd like to make.
My name is Rachel Kozera. I live at 30 Groton Harvard Road, so this is impactful in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And so, goodness, I've forgotten her name. I apologize. She just mentioned walking trails, and so currently the area is very, I would say, like, there's not people walking around in the woods right now.
Mm-hmm.
So one thing that I thought would be beneficial is anticipated landscaping for individuals that are impacted by walking trails or parks or things like that, just because, it's kind of weird to have people walking around in your backyard, so you want to maybe not see them. What was I going to say? I guess it's just like the same thing like people have expressed, I've seen online a little bit, is water usage concerns. I mean, we don't have a hospital right now in our area, so do we have the amount of personnel to kind of service 50 new houses or a community like that?
So as part of the review,
Uh-huh.
all those loads, water, sewage, et cetera, would be examined in detail.
Okay.
And especially by our DPW. So the answer is yes, that will get careful review, absolutely.
Gotcha. And then a lot of questions. I guess I have concerns about the wildlife. I don't really have neighbors. The wildlife is my neighbor. So I guess just like springtime, I know the raptors, the hawks and vultures and stuff, they nest, and so I've seen them in that area. So I guess it's just a concern that when the timing for this project and just the, I don't know, transitioning the land to be habitable by people versus what it is right now. So just being considerate of that. I'm not sure if that was a question, but
It's a comment, it's a reflection. Yeah, that's totally appropriate.
but it was just a concern of mine, just because.
Yeah, it is a concern of all of ours.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I think the influx of animals as well in the community. I just didn't know if the individuals in charge of if there's a bear in someone's backyard or a bobcat or something like that, do we have the personnel to kind of take that on as well?
I think, not that I know of. I would ask, animal control.
Right. Yeah. So I guess that's a concern. I just
Yeah.
had things that I was thinking about, and just, I guess,
All right.
wanted to ask them.
I appreciate that.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Is there anyone else who would like to ask a question or make a comment? How about on Zoom?
Pauline.
About the conservation work that we're working on.
Right, the conservation analysis.
So Pauline has had her hand up first, and then Beth, I see Beth has her hand up as well.
Okay, Pauline?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair and Julie. I think Beth had her hand up the longest,
Oh,
so I would
sorry,
be
Beth.
happy to defer to her.
Beth? All right, so we're not hearing from Beth?
Oh, here we go. She's coming.
Oh, here we go. All right.
Sorry, good evening. My earlier hand was simply to ask what the public comment process was, so that's why I had lowered it. But now that we are in public comment period, I am pleased to have the opportunity to make a few comments. And I first will state Beth Stidmeyer, Nashua Street. Thank you all for your thoughtful discussion of this tonight. It's been, really helpful and informative. And I know that you're putting a lot of time and thought into it and appreciate that. Um, I I called and spoke to the planner, to Danny, earlier because I was just finding the materials that were provided difficult to sort of translate in light of what is shown in the regulations and guidance documents. And I, after observing the conversation tonight, do really want to stress how helpful it would have been to have in the packet an existing conditions plan that was surveyed, as well as a conservation analysis map that accompanies the narrative that they provided. And I know that they provided a lot of overview maps about jurisdictional areas, a lot of information that's available through Mass GIS and all of the things that were required from that aspect. But they also, in their brief presentation this evening, identified a lot of things that weren't captured in the conservation analysis materials that were provided as a visual. And I think the whole discussion tonight could have been really incredibly streamlined had you had that visual. A couple of things that I'd like to bring up based on the conversation that has transpired and things that would have been helpful to have in that visual. I'll mention, but I also do want to state that I think that Goddard Consulting is very experienced. They have a lot of qualified, environmental and wetlands and wildlife folks working with them. I just don't think that the visuals that were provided in the conservation analysis were adequate. And again, they have made some comments about additional information that they have and geographic location that they have that weren't shared visually. And and I'll just go into some of the comments based on the things that were discussed. But first, to clarify that the findings that are being made this evening will be submitted to the applicant as guidance in developing the preliminary subdivision plan. So I don't think
There
there's a
isn't
lot.
there isn't a,
It's not a
it's not a
subdivision.
subdivision, Beth.
I'm sorry, I'm reading from your regulations. Page 4.
We know.
The process. OSRD.
Yeah, this is just not going to fall as under a subdivision.
I'm sorry, what regulations apply here?
So the OSRD regulations do apply, but it's going to fall under our site plan review regulations and under the bylaw, the OSRD bylaw that it's allowed.
So am I not looking where it says overall OSRD subdivision application process? That's not the correct process here?
It's the process that we're following, but it's not a subdivision. It's a site plan.
Okay, please clarify what step 4 should say. Page 4 of the regulations.
Is the OSID regulations?
Yeah, let me pull it up.
Step 4. Step 4 is Conservation Commission submits their recommendations on priority areas for conservation to Planning Board.
4.5.
Planning Board makes written conservation findings and submits to the applicant as guidance in developing the preliminary subdivision plan. Yeah, but it's not a preliminary subdivision plan. It's falling under a site plan, which our bylaw states is allowed.
In either event, we're giving them what we want. We've been giving them the findings.
It's still the same. It's still the same process. It's just not subdivision.
Okay, I'm not exactly sure why, but I can have a follow-up conversation on that. But just to clarify, the findings or guidance for the next step in the review process.
I don't think they're guidance. They're a decision.
They're
going to be required in the decision.
Yeah.
It's not guidance anymore once we vote for the findings. Am I right, Danny?
Yeah, that's how I interpret it too.
Yeah, no, I just don't think that that's what the regulations are saying. It's saying conservation findings are what the applicant will use as a guide in developing their next phase of the submission, whether it's site plan or subdivision.
Well,
I feel like there's been a lot of hang up on some kind of formal thing being written tonight when all you're doing is identifying what you'd like them to do in the next step.
It's not, it's in the zoning bylaw.
Mm-hmm. I know.
So in the zoning bylaw, it does say it's part of the decision. Planning board's conservation findings shall be incorporated into its decision to approve of conditions or deny an application. Conservation findings shall show land to be permanently preserved for conservation restriction, as well as recommended conservation uses, ownership, management, and so forth. The findings are in the decision.
Can you give a reference, Ken?
And does the finding tonight indicate the area to be developed and the area to be conserved?
Yes.
So
Entirely.
that is very difficult.
That may change
to
with
do.
the stormwater change.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. These findings we don't go to that tonight. We didn't get that in our findings. We're gonna determine exactly where that area is.
Well,
We're leaving that open till we see the plan.
Right.
correct, because it might change based on our recommendations.
Exactly, yeah. Yeah, we're not there yet. I don't believe
I
it.
think there's a statement that's been made about agreeing to the areas shown because it's the already disturbed area.
I mean, I know the Conservation Commission's recommendation says that is the best area for it because it was previously disturbed. And based on the discussion we had earlier about the stormwater and the stormwater basin being in the open space, that may change as well. So we know for the most part where the development will be, but the actual limits of where the open space line is going to be and the area that's going to be saved, we don't have that per se until the submission from the applicant comes before the planning board.
Right.
So that finding is being struck.
No. It's not
What
being
are we
struck.
trying to get to, Beth? What's your goal here?
I'm
What are we
just-
trying to prove that we haven't done tonight? We spent a lot of time on already. What can we improve on what we've done tonight that will satisfy you?
Yeah, okay, so I feel like the public record didn't have some of the information, so I apologize, I'm at a disadvantage because I haven't seen what was shown
Do you think it's
tonight.
fair what you're asking would help the process at all? That this will get us closer to what we need to get done tonight?
Right, so my next set of
This is a pain
comments
in the
is
ass.
related to the information that we have. I think that, again, I haven't seen the preliminary plan and I have not seen
There is
the
no
existing
preliminary plan.
conditions because they weren't in the public record. And I don't think that we need to consider third-party review of stormwater submission at this point in time. That does not need to be in, any of the findings.
We
But
already
I
agreed to
do
that.
think that protection of trees is important. I think identification of specimen trees is important, and that wasn't provided in the existing conditions material that were included in the conservation analysis.
Because it's part of our regulations in our OSRD when they submit to the planning board.
I'm sorry, defining the conservation area versus the development area, it would be nice to consider that. The consultant mentioned a cluster of trees and a cluster of shrubs that produce berries important for wildlife value. Those aren't in the materials. We don't know the location of those in the materials that were submitted. So in identifying the conservation area, these are important elements to understand. And I think the trail connections are also another factor that it would be important to consider in advance so that you are giving a recommendation of the areas that would not be developed. And I understand some of this can play out through the course of the rest of the review, but the conservation analysis example shown in your regulations clearly thinks about important wildlife corridors, important trail connections, important tree areas, important habitat areas, and we don't have that information tonight. So it just makes it difficult to define a conservation area versus a development area. If you could show page 10 of the regulations, this is really the type of tool that would be helpful in talking about what is our defined conservation area and our defined protected area. It just helps the whole process along to have clarification on this up front. So this is, this is a figure that's really clearly saying, here's where your rocky outcroppings are. Here is where your important vistas are. Here's where wildlife corridors are. Here's where future trail connection priorities are. Here's where and mature trees are.
Mr. Chair, if I may?
Rock cropping.
Yes, Jeff.
There's
Beth, I don't know if you were here at the beginning of the meeting this evening, but this was discussed as we discussed the fact that we don't have a map as a requirement in the OSRD, and we also recognize that we wouldn't have that information in front of us this evening. And I think, to be honest with you, we would all agree with you wholeheartedly that having a primary conservation area identification similar to what's in the regulation would be very beneficial. But as a question I asked very early on, and we recognize that there is a chink in our armor, if you will. It's not a requirement in the beginning, and we will be coming to town meeting, I'm sure, to have this rectified.
It doesn't have to be a requirement. You can just ask for it.
Yes, I understand that, but I understand that, Beth, but it's not, we don't have it here right now.
But you could still ask for it.
We could. Beth, do you have other comments?
But can I just, the ledge croppings are shown
on
on
the
here.
next sheet, then it shows the priority conservation area. We don't have the full, like the full property shown on this plan here. So this is showing the proposed developed area. But if you go back to show what the conservation analysis maps recommend for showing priority conservation versus priority development, we just don't have anything like that tonight. And so my concern is regarding the statement that says we think the best area is, because we don't know how they're going to fit stormwater within that area. We've identified that the stormwater should not be in the 50% conservation area, but we, so there may be changes, and I just want to really have more information to determine where the priority conservation areas are, where those trail connections are, where those wildlife connections are, and where the trees that we desire to protect are. So I really do appreciate, I'm just trying to be helpful. I really do appreciate everyone's time.
Okay.
But there's a lot of questions that have come up, and I think there's going to be significant changes to their proposal based on the need for the stormwater treatment to be within the developed area and still have
No, it doesn't have to be
50%.
within the developed area.
Well, and we'll get to that.
I haven't said that.
It's coming, and we'll get
Yeah.
there. Thank
Yeah.
you.
So I guess just in terms of the guidance for the applicant, more consideration of LID, protection of mature trees, establishment of priority trail corridors and wildlife corridors would be, something that I would really suggest at this stage. And thank you all very much.
Thank you, Beth. Pauline?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll be very, very brief. I will second everything Beth just said to you all. I have a comment and a question. My question is, if I heard tonight's presentation, there's an update on the Conservation Commission advisory report.
Yes, right there.
And will that be on the website tomorrow, Danny?
Oh, you're talking about the conservation recommendation?
Yes.
Yes.
So this, the document that the Conservation Commission voted on is, the updated version will be put up on the website, and then the formal recommendation in which or findings that the board votes on tonight will also be put up on the website tomorrow.
Perfect. And then my question is, how many of you at that table are familiar with the proposal for Emily's Way at the same site about 10, 12 years ago? Show of hands, maybe? Okay. And I would like y'all to post all of that,
No.
if you would.
How is that
so
germane
that
to
we could
this?
have
If that's a public records request, you can make your, and.
I understand, and I went searching for it, but a lot of the documents are very hard to find. So if you could just put a package together, that would be
Yeah,
really
No.
helpful.
That's a subdivision that was expired and is not a subdivision anymore, doesn't
Yeah,
it?
it's being
Yes,
rescinded.
I understand. I know there've been changes to the zoning laws.
No, it's
I'm not suggesting they should be compared, but I think people should know. That's
Uh,
all.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Pauline.
Thank you.
If we could compile the language necessary on this, could you help me with that, Danny?
Yes. Oh yeah, make sure if there's a.
No, it's not online.
We said.
So can I give a shot?
Yeah.
I'd like to make a motion that we accept the recommendations discussed this evening based on the 2/11/25 memo composed by the Conservation Commission of 13 bulleted recommendations, and we accept all the recommendations with the exception of the bullets number, and I'm going to say the number and then the sense of what it is. Number 6, we obligating third-party peer review the stormwater management. Number 9, about the buffer to the northern edge from the ledge on the adjacent property. Number 12, which was about
Acquisition of
acquisition of
properties along.
property along Groton Harvard Road, and then 13 about the marking of the 12-inch trees on the plan. That's my motion.
Seconded.
Any discussion?
Yes.
Please lay it on us, Nathan.
So the OSRD, that section that Ken read, talks about a conservation analysis
Mm-hmm.
and then a conservation finding,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Is this the conservation analysis?
No, so the conservation analysis is what the applicant submitted.
Okay.
The Conservation Commission submitted recommendations.
Yeah.
We will now create the conservation, the findings.
Okay, so is it, as Jonathan stated, with the strike bullets, is this the finding?
Yes.
The finding,
With the findings that with the recommendation of removal of those certain bullet points.
the conservation findings from section 1013B4 says, shall show land to be permanently preserved by a conservation restriction, as well as recommended conservation uses, ownership and management of guidelines for such land. Does this show land to be permanently preserved by a conservation restriction?
So this set of findings we're doing tonight may not be all the findings that we do.
Right.
This is the first set of findings that we've done in this step.
Mm-hmm.
So that precludes the fact that we could, after we exactly know where that land is,
Mm-hmm.
make a finding at that point in time that that is, in fact, the land.
Yes.
The findings we're voting on tonight do not necessarily preclude that we will never get to that step.
Okay.
Because
That's my comment. You can-
yes, because let's compare it to another project, Stratton Hill. That open space changed, increased. So had those findings been, we would have had to.
Well-
So it allows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To be proposed, and
Yes.
it'll change.
And typically at the end of the project is when we kind
Same
of do that.
comment for the findings shall indicate preferred locations for the development. We will have to amend these
Yeah.
findings.
No?
No, so I think based on what we've seen, the plan, that is the preferred area, based on how the Conservation Commission
We
has
have to
voted.
show it, so
And
that'll have to be adopted into these findings.
Yeah, we have a.
We'll just do more findings.
Yeah. We'll continue to have.
It's additive at this point.
So it would be this one, yes.
That's called discovery, having more findings.
Yes.
I think,
We've got a good foundation to start with, hopefully.
yeah,
I did.
We did, yeah, we did.
I think that these are guide. I guess I'm very. I really appreciate what Beth had to say, that this is guidance for us, right?
Wait.
Guidance anymore.
When Conservation Commission prepared it for us, it's guidance.
Yes.
But once we vote,
It's
a finding.
It's
It's
a
the beginning
finding.
of the findings.
exactly.
Which will be included in our decision.
Right.
That's good.
Is there anything else, Nathan?
Yeah, I guess
No.
I would need time to digest this.
We have a motion.
You're not gonna vote?
Well, we have a motion in a second.
We're in the discussion phase.
We're in discussion phase, and so are you asking to defer the vote?
I prefer that,
I
but
don't think we can.
you have a motion on the floor.
You can choose to abstain or say nay, but we are gonna go vote. Is there any further discussion?
I think we had enough. I think we had a great meeting, and we made a lot of valid points.
Ken?
Yes.
Julie?
Yes.
Nathan?
Nay.
Jeff?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Great. I want to thank everyone, and especially the Conservation Commission, for coming here tonight and for your patience. And Heather, thank you. And for everyone who showed up regarding this conservation analysis. I'm also going to... Is there a question? Yes, go ahead, John.
Not a question, I just have a comment. I don't know how many more OSRDs Ayer will have. I keep thinking there are not gonna be any more, and they keep popping up.
Bizarre.
Please stop that.
When this was early stages of learning about OSRDs, I thought the process was, there's a piece of land, it's a proposed subdivision, over 6 units, they have to be regulated by the OSRD. That piece of property is seen by the Conservation Commission before anything. Before we see that. Because we're talking about, we can't put a trail here because there's a house there. There's not a house there. So we'd like to be able to make our recommendations without preconceived.
That's fair.
Yeah, we talked about
And
this.
can I just explain what actually occurred? So back in last January, the applicant came before us, came, internally to meet with the town departments to discuss the potential project.
Yep.
We kind of started discussing what the potential of the project could be. We got far, and then eventually, from internally, from Heather and myself, we asked if they would go down this route after. So the OSRD section after.
Okay.
So it was kind of like we started moving down that road, and then we asked them to veer off this way.
Gotcha.
And so it kind of led to the cart being before the horse.
Yep.
And that, so I do take, that's on me for, we could have initially just, at that point,
And I don't mean to say that I disagree.
No.
where they're putting
But I
the
understand.
best place, but-
And if not a retort, but a comment, we'll be picking up Stratton Hill in a few minutes. That has been a messy project for
a long time,
more than a decade.
All right.
And
20 years.
we got there with the OSRD. Stratton existed before the OSRD existed. The OSRD came in place. The folks from Stratton saw that it was a benefit. We ended up with 120 more acres of open land. So it's a messy process, unfortunately. I agree with you, John.
And I think we're just learning
But
still.
what we're trying to accomplish here is 7 acres or 6+ acres of space on that side of the road. Never going to be touched.
That's great.
And so it's tough getting there sometimes.
And this is our, Heather and my first go around with this. So
I think they're doing a great
we're,
job.
we're in a learning process, and we're gonna fine tune a lot of this.
If there were easy answers, we would have had them by now.
Yes.
We wouldn't be volunteers, would we?
Thank you for your time.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think they need to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Passes
I don't think they
unanimously.
like us. They got out of here fast.
For the rest of us, 5-minute recess.
5 minutes. recess.
5 minutes. Thank you.
So sorry.
Okay, we are resuming our planning board meeting, and the topic, of course, is Stratton Hill. We don't need a motion. It's open, right?
Nope, it's already open.
It's all right, public hearing's already open, so representatives of Stratton Hill, please join us at the table.
And since I did not give this to the board, you have.
I'll have that.
Well, you don't have to move.
What's
But,
that?
you know, I want to recognize the fact that Ann Gagnon, Pat Huckery, and of course Marion's daughter are here. They aren't part of the applicant's presentation, but they've been very supportive.
Okay, excellent.
But I don't want them to have to move necessarily.
That's fine.
You know, and I've seen, do you want me to, in the
No,
interest
actually,
of being expeditious, do you want me to just,
I'm gonna turn to Danny first, and then I'll turn to you.
okay.
You travel with an entourage, Bob.
Yeah, I have,
So Danny,
That's what we can
Yeah. But I have reviewed these.
Beautiful. And I was going to ask Danny for what should we begin with? Do we start with the special conditions or do we start with the?
Let's discuss the OSRD draft decision first, and we can kind of go through those. Just because I want to let's touch on the first couple of things that we talked about earlier. So in the OSRD decision on page 3, I had a highlighted section that says sidewalk requirement, which we had previously discussed at the meeting, did not formally vote. This is actually not required. Our bylaw, our regulations for subdivisions actually only requires one sidewalk on one side of the property.
Yeah, and you're right. I think that actually.
That was the old version.
Yeah, but also the waiver, I think, came from the old version.
Yes.
And there was, on the original iteration, there was a portion down close to Wright Road where it wasn't a sidewalk. We put a sidewalk in, so you're right.
Yeah.
Irrelevant.
So on the revision that you see there, I have it removed.
Yep.
The next section that I want to run through, just so that everyone can see. So 9, 10, 11 are conditions, general conditions that are typically required.
Page 6.
Page 6, sorry. Are required during through our subdivision rules and regulations.
And those are fine.
Yep, those were put into the general conditions as part of this decision, so that it's something that'll carry forward with any other subdivision as well. Number 24 and 25 on page 7 are also the same thing. These are also just requirements as part of a subdivision as well.
And those are fine. But on page 7.
Yep.
And I know that there's a plan that's dated January 3rd, I'm certain.
Yes.
But I also know that Frank gave plans that are dated about a week and a half ago.
Conservation Commission?
Yeah, and you should reference those perhaps also, even though they haven't been, because the reason I mention that is the Mylar that you end up getting, assuming that you voted, will incorporate those. So you should perhaps reference
that's fine. Yep,
Yeah.
I can change the reference.
That date.
And I'll just confirm with Frank on that.
Yep.
I think we did discuss that. I left it there until we weren't sure where the commission was on.
Well, yeah, they haven't voted on it.
Correct.
Yet. Yeah.
But so I can reference those because I do have that on the I do have those plans.
Yeah.
So
And
I
maybe
can reference
leave
those.
the date out and just put the lastly revised plan.
So the only problem with that is I want to make sure that there is a date of reference so
And
that
do the
when some
25th.
so I'll confirm what
Yeah.
the date is.
Yeah, I think it's the 25th.
Let me see. I have.
Because it's on one of the other documents.
Heather is on.
The
Great.
date on those is actually the 30th.
Oh, the
Oh,
30th.
okay.
Great. Thank
January
you.
Thank you, Heather.
January 30th. Yep.
There you go. Great. Thank you.
I just received them in
It's just a
person on
typo.
Friday,
Yeah.
so that's the reason why the date's fresh in
Yeah,
my mind.
that's true.
Okay. Great.
It was just a typo.
Yeah, it's a typo.
Yeah,
You
just
left
make sure they're
out
on.
a zero.
And the stormwater too will have to be.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. I will make that. Go ahead. Yes. So that'll be the 30th. 24 and 25 are just also because it's a subdivision. 26, obviously, I put in a condition that you'll need an order of condition from the Air Conservation Commission prior to any site work. We added in 31, which is so prior to the issuance of any building permits. This is also within our subdivision rules and regulations. It's basically what we do is so.
Oh, it's a good idea. I have no problem with it.
And I did. There
I've
was
seen what happens when that isn't done.
Yes, and there was one edit that came from Ken, which I did add at the end of it. So it says within the street as determined by the Director of Public Works for said lot. So that it specifies that
We get to choose, not him.
Yes.
Okay.
The next one is 41 and 42 on page 9. So during construction, the board will require periodic status reports written by a certified professional engineer. This may be in writing or in person at discretion of the board. They normally be required quarterly, but the board may require more frequently, particularly sensitive sites and complex construction and other reasons. So 41 and 42 are just kind of to tie each other together, just to make sure that the board is updated. Subdivisions do typically, take some time. The next one on page 10, 43, the cluster mailbox shall be installed per USPS guidelines. And this is under the prior to the certificate of any certificate of occupancy. And then 44 is the documents establishing the homeowner association and condo association.
And that's gonna cause confusion because not all of it, your verbiage, you know what to do to change it so that it doesn't cause confusion. Because
For
they
which
won't
one?
be,
Not all homeowners associations.
yeah.
I know, that's why I wrote slash, because I wasn't sure, we weren't sure on what what you guys were doing
but
just
what
yet.
I would say is all documentation associated with any homeowners association or condominium association shall be forwarded for review.
Yes.
And that way you're covered, because
Okay.
I'm gonna give you, I've already given you some generic stuff, but I'm gonna give you shared driveway.
Yeah.
agreements, all kinds of
So
stuff.
any documents establishing.
Any documentation.
Okay,
Yeah.
Those
okay.
2 words.
Yeah, and that way that covers whatever's gonna be there without confusing people.
You ever thought about the field of law?
Okay, so any documentation establishing the homeowner association, okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then this looks fine with that one revision.
Okay. Yeah, so and then the stormwater one we'll show the same revisions that we just showed.
Yep.
So, be ready
I think we can go to the special conditions.
to the special
And I have
conditions.
two
and-
things I gotta talk about on that.
Yep, and I'm just conferring just to figure out the, so when we do the vote on the OSRD, do we combine that with the special conditions?
Yeah, so the special
Perfect.
conditions will be considered.
Perfect.
Will be.
That's what I thought.
Added as part of the
Yep.
OSRD decision and the stormwater management
All right.
permit.
So would it be okay if we just start with the council's
Yeah.
comments?
Yeah, 'cause
you
it
take
might make it-
Yeah, why don't you start with you?
They're all really fine with two minor tweaks.
Okay.
Number 5 will end up being problematic, the last part of it. So,
Showing the existing trails on the site?
the
put up
showing
trail
the
signs?
existing trails, there's no problem. It's the markers. We're happy to do whatever Fish and Wildlife or the town would like. I do know this site well enough, and that's why I'm so glad that Pat is here tonight, because she and I had meetings about this site 25 years ago. There are aspects of this property where public access isn't desired because it's very sensitive. So where trails end up going and where signage directs people to go is something that really needs to be worked out with them. I just ask you to leave out put up trail signage for the existing trails, because there may well be existing trails that lead people to areas that
Oh, I see what you're getting at.
discourage them from going to.
Okay.
Because
And I can,
the total habitat's not been established yet, and these trails may be going there and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I went through this, and as I say, I joke about this frequently, but I know more about this site than any rational person should know. And I went through this issue over like an 18-month period ages ago when we worked out what got worked out for the 400-acre open space parcel next to this. That was a real sticking point. So all I'm asking you to do is just that we're gonna give them a plan and you a plan showing existing trails.
but
Just
for-
take out the thing about put up signage, take that out. It's a problem.
Now, I want to make a comment before.
We'll pay for any signs that
So,
anybody wants.
I know what you're talking
Yeah.
about, because I know from Oak Hill and Littleton, there are times where there are established trails, you have to close the trails to prevent erosion and other damage.
That's true.
And I can respect that there are trails that have been established there that might not be the most appropriate because they weren't done in consideration of the landscape. They were just done
They
haphazardly.
were just
by
done, yeah.
People cutting through to hunt whatever they're doing.
Yeah.
So I recognize where you're going with this. Is there any language though that ensures that we'll get the blazing in the future, that eventually it's coming? Ann?
I don't know, I mean, we've all worked together on this site a long time. It's never been a problem. So that's why I'm telling you, you're not gonna.
We blaze our boundaries, generally blaze trails. We keep it very wild. As you know, if you've been to our properties, they're all open to the public. And it's generally more loose, wild experience for people.
I have a comment.
Yeah.
2 years ago, I was on the trail in Rocky Hill.
Yeah.
And I overheard someone crying. They were lost.
Oh yeah, and you can get lost out there.
So before I got to her, I was walking over to her. By the time I got to her, the rescue crowd, the fire crowd had come out for her, right? And they weren't angry, and what happens is you panic, whatever. My point is, you don't have the blazes up there. What it does is put a burden on the town then, is that when people, if it's more likely for people to get lost, guess what that incurs? That incurs the call for rescue. Now, of course we want to rescue people who are lost, etc., but it's incumbent upon us to create the conditions that minimize that possibility. And partly it's safety, but also partly it's part of the municipal burden of
True,
safety
but
that we have to be concerned with.
I've got a solution, because again,
Okay.
I'm good at compromises, is if you can just change put up trail signage to work with the Commonwealth to place trail signage as they may determine is appropriate, then I think we'd be happy.
But so here's a question. What happens if they determine that they don't want to put up signage?
There's going to be areas where there's going to be signs that ask people not to go.
But what if the determination is that none of the trails are getting any?
But that's not going to be the case, because there are going to be some trails.
How do we know that?
Because it's the Commonwealth. I mean, it's not a private landowner, it's the Department of Fisheries and Wildlife who is there to serve us all.
Just finished saying that they like to not, put any of that.
Right, and we like having it. That's what it comes down to.
And that's why I have that condition.
My question, are there a lot of calls that you get when people are lost?
Oh, Pat, I don't know, we're gonna dig a hole for ourselves. Yeah, I think that the best thing that we can do, because again, I'm gonna run into a snag with this language. And we don't wanna run into a snag. This is too important. This open space is too important. So let's just make it that we will work with the town and the Commonwealth as to appropriate signage. And we'll pay for it. We're happy to pay.
I don't think the pay is the
Yeah, I know, but we will work with the town and the Commonwealth.
Yeah, Nathan?
I'll try to compromise too.
Okay, good.
Can we require one trail, 2 trails?
That's what ended up happening over on the other side.
Right, so that there is some place to go as a minimum.
But it's premature, because we don't have even the trails
That's
map
the thing,
yet.
Nathan, we're not even sure, like.
So I mean,
understand where you're going. It makes sense.
And you know what we could do? Why don't we say that we'll revisit that subject once we have the trails map? That's a good idea. Okay.
I would just like to point out one thing. So Best Wildlife, when they take ownership of a piece of property, we generally like to do wildlife habitat assessments ourselves, because we haven't done that before we get ahead of ourselves with trails or habitat restoration. And that's a process we go through with our wildlife biologists and our stewardship biologists, and I also participate in that. So we like not to get too far ahead with how we handle this kind of thing before we have a chance to assess.
And the one thing I can say, and all 3 of us can say, 4 of us can say of personal knowledge, the land that's going to be protected, as well as the land that's already protected, does have areas of very unique characteristics that need to be protected from humanity. essentially.
Oh, yes,
The only reason why they exist is because it's been so remote, and that's part of what we're going to protect.
Nathan?
So could we tie a minimum quantity to occupancy or to some permitting, to something, a future stake?
Well, I suppose you could say, you could tie it to, we'll come back and see you before what was the first affordable? I think it was the ninth.
Duplex.
Yeah, the ninth thing. Yeah, we'll come back and see you and resolve that. That gives a couple of years.
That gives us 2 years to
Yeah.
assess,
You think that works?
Fair
Perfect.
enough.
So how would this language look in here?
So I think what it would say, from my vantage point, is prior to turning over the open space to either the town or Fisheries and Wildlife, because some's going
Yeah,
to the
because some
town.
is going to the town.
We're gonna provide plans showing existing trails, and that we're gonna do.
Okay.
We will revisit the issue of trails and signage prior to the ninth building permit being issued.
I'm gonna ask a question, not to be,
You got a question?
I'm not gonna, I don't wanna dig us a hole.
Yeah.
In the hot real estate market we got now, we could be building a ninth unit in 2 years. The market that existed when the project first went forward took a pause.
Well, that's true.
And
So you
so-
could say
and-
24 months, how's that?
I was gonna say, either that, a time frame of some sort, and hopefully people can enjoy the property without either endangering or being endangered by the construction process itself too.
Yeah, and that's true.
Yes, the mapping has to happen, but there's a certain amount of people who use that property on a regular basis.
We understand that.
Yeah.
So I just wanna find a middle ground.
So Pat, in a perfect world, 24 months or 36 is probably safer.
I mean, you needed like a 2 full biological seasons.
Yeah, so 36.
Yeah, so.
36
but
months.
I don't know who that gentleman is, but.
Well, no, there's
property's open.
already-
It's not like
Yeah.
they're closed before.
I'm Jeff Tillotson.
Yeah.
But anyway,
There is-
I know it's open and stuff like that, and I want the wildlife to be done because there's cool
within
stuff
the-
out there.
There's a doc.
I don't know how I know that, but there's wicked cool stuff out there. There's really cool stuff out
There
there.
is.
Yeah.
We need to get this meeting back in
Yeah.
control.
And the other question is, when will the property be turned over?
Oh, that's gonna happen pretty quick.
Right away.
Yeah, at the beginning.
That was my other question.
Soon as the mapping is done.
So you could conceivably start the process of wildlife inventory and stuff.
This year.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. That was just.
No, that's gonna happen real quick. Then the only other thing, and this
Well, I just want to make sure we get this language
Let's nail the
right.
language down.
Okay.
So
Vote tonight.
prior to turning over the open space to the town of Ayer and
to the
Fisheries and
Department of
Wildlife.
Fisheries and Wildlife.
Yep. The applicant shall provide plans showing existing trails situated on the site and.
Period.
Period. I was gonna say and we will revisit, but.
Well,
I was like,
yeah.
Period.
And then, the
Yeah.
issue of trail signage will be revisited with the planning board within 36 months.
From the start of the project.
No, I'd say from the approval.
No, from the approval, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I have one other really minor thing. Yeah.
What you got?
On, number 8, can we change the word steward to liaison? The
Sure.
reason being,
It's just what we
Yeah.
have previously been talking.
but Fish and Wildlife actually, they have stewards
Oh, okay.
internally.
Yep, that's
It would
fine.
be confusing.
Yep.
So if we could just say liaison, that would be just perfect.
You saw number 15? No,
No, we're gonna have to go through all these.
We will
but-
go through all, but.
I did see them all, yeah.
I just wanted, because originally it was gonna be the first or the second building built, after the demo, but we wanna make sure.
Those are
it's
fine.
right. Okay, that's-
Those are fine. He
I didn't mean to
probably
jump.
will do, he'll probably do one up front. He might do them both up front. That's what he did in Groton.
The only thing is, as long he can do them up front, but they can't be in the same building.
Exactly.
Oh.
Legally by the
Legally,
state
they
law.
can't.
That's interesting.
Yeah, state law means you can't, so you can't know, like, you can't visually know that all of the affordable units are in one building. You can't segregate them.
But we actually have elsewhere, which is strange.
So
We made them look the same.
You did it off-site.
No, we didn't.
The Groton project, you guys have them on Westford Road up there?
That's right, that was
Yeah,
part
but
of the
it's
site.
it's a whole different, yeah, but it's not
But
connected.
then in
It's not connected to the
Deerhaven,
development.
within, internal to the subdivision, Dave built a duplex that was affordable.
Yeah.
You can't tell which one it is.
Yeah, the state law does not allow that.
Actually, I question that, I gotta tell you.
I just spoke with Alicia, I spoke to Alicia, who is
Yeah,
our.
but I believe what the requirement is you have to make it comparable, they have to look like the other units. The reason why it's problematic for them not to be in the same building is the intent was that these were gonna be maintained as rentals, because rental housing is important. But also, think of it, when you have a duplex, you automatically have a condex association. I'm gonna have to create one on each. It's you are creating it's a recipe for disaster to have people sharing the same building, the same HOA fees that are of very different circumstances.
So based on how I have it here, it shouldn't affect it. I mean,
Yeah,
if you
it really
think that's
probably
not-
won't.
But based on my discussions with Alicia,
Yeah.
who spoke with the state just last night.
But it is done routinely, it does not have to be, so I.
Okay, and that's
yeah.
so that's why.
But I think it's okay.
Yeah, I think we leave it as it is. It doesn't.
It doesn't impact anything, but these are likely to be in a single building.
Okay.
I can tell you that.
I don't. Based on my discussion
Yeah.
so far, I was told that that's not allowed. But
Yeah, no,
that's
it can
fine.
be.
That can be figured out
But
later
it will
on.
look no different than anything else.
Correct.
And actually, as an aside, someday go down Route 40 in Groton and drive in the Deerhaven subdivision. If you can figure out which is the affordable duplex, you'll win a bet.
Okay.
Council, do you have any other?
That was the only thing.
So let's go through these one by one, so we can nail this. So the first one.
Well, so the first one, this one that was proposed from Attorney Collins. We spoke about it at the last meeting,
Yep.
as well as number 2, also from Attorney Collins,
Yep.
as well as number 3. Number 4 was one that we added in, which was that if the location of the turtle nesting area changed
We'll
to
come
the
back and
CMP.
see you.
Yep, exactly. Well, just submit updated plans.
Yeah.
Not that you have to need to come back before us. Just submitted revised plans.
Nathan,
We
do you
talked
have a
about
question?
5, so.
That was 5. 5 has a time.
That's
frame.
that's 4.
That's 4,
Okay.
yeah.
5 has a time.
5. Now I'm going to read this so that so we know. Prior to the turning over the open space to the Town of Ayer and Department of Fishery and Wildlife, the applicant shall provide plans showing existing trails situated on the site. Period. The issue of signage for trails will be revisited with the planning board after 36 months from approval.
Within 36
Within.
Oh,
Within 36
within.
months.
See, that's why we read it again. Within 36 months from approval.
Great.
Number 6 is also something from number 6 and number 7 were something that Attorney Collins has also had proposed. We did add in the one section of the removal of earth material piles and trash shall be reviewed with the conservation agent and fishery wildlife
Thank you.
agent to determine what should be removed and what should remain.
Yep.
And actually, I just want to bring up something on that so that you understand. Most of those materials are stuff that actually would normally be used in road construction. So anything that stays out back, he would like to bring it, use it, because anything that ends up staying is going to end up having to be replaced with stuff we have to truck into the site down Wright Road.
Yeah.
So it's good for us to be able to use it, but we will go over it to make certain that we aren't destroying a habitat of some kind.
I think Ann had a question on that. Did you? Oh, no. Okay. The next one was number 9, which is hunting and a mechanism to create future trails shall be allowed within the open space. We already discussed. No motorized vehicles within the open space unless used. So I added this unless used for maintenance for the internal nesting area or utility purposes.
Or for public safety purposes.
Or general
Yeah, and general maintenance.
Maintenance, management,
Yeah.
property, you know.
Management.
So general maintenance,
Yes.
you think will
Yeah,
cover?
it's just the public
Yeah.
can't bring motorized.
Correct. I just, it was something that I was just like, oh, this kind of leaves this open. I want to make sure we have a.
I think the word is more like, for us, it's management. We manage the property, you know.
Okay.
Species and communities.
So, comma and general management. Yeah, I definitely put in the utility just because I know the utility company needs access through there. Okay. Number 11, at the end of this one, so this is one that Attorney Collins did want to discuss about as well, the split rail fence or boulders.
Yep. Because actually Pat and I worked out the idea of boulders years ago, and that's probably what Dave would like to do rather than a fence, and it is more permanent. Dave suggested that on the back of each lot, there would be at least 2 conservation signs in addition to boulders. So to be very clear, so there's not an encroachment problem. The concern he had about the fence, he didn't have a big issue about it, but he was like, after I put it up, what happens when it falls down?
Exactly.
And I actually had that happen myself when an adjacent landowner put up a fence next to my property on Groton School Road. And it was fine until it fell down, and then I had to spring for, having it carted away. So I would prefer the boulders and the conservation markers, be perfectly honest.
Did you change any of the wording of that?
He put or boulders.
No, and nothing else?
No.
At the end, and town planner. At the
Yeah.
So what, we're gonna take the word split rail fence out?
Well, I
you
think
can
we can
leave
leave
it, it's or.
as it, because it says or.
Yeah,
If,
but we're gonna put in boulders.
Yeah. Number 12 is, we talked about that granite
Yep,
bounds.
and that's fine.
That's fine.
Excuse me, I have one quick question on that. So the granite bounds would be at the,
Lot corners.
abutting the open space parcel?
That's right.
But I was wondering if there could be, at least a few iron pins at the rear corners of the open space? So not where the new houses are being constructed, but so that we know where our property line is.
Oh, I'm sure that's no problem. I bet they're out there now.
Well, yeah.
But yeah.
They didn't necessarily show on the plan.
Yeah.
So, not every single corner, but at least in a few key places so that we can make sure that we're maintaining our property.
But I think, so, correct me if I'm wrong, as part of the conservation restriction,
It's not a restriction.
Okay, so that's where, okay.
But actually, I'll give you my word, I'll get you those. We don't have to clutter up the decision.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay.
I'll get you the pins.
So you're good, so you.
Yep.
Cool, thank you.
We'll
The
work
applicant-
out where.
So the applicant shall install a parking area shown on the OS1 and provide the signage may be requested by the Conservation Commission. That was, we added these 2 affordable unit conditions, which
Yep.
you were okay
That's
with.
fine. They're statements of fact.
Yep.
Exactly,
Yeah.
right.
It's just, part of their requirements
Yep.
and stuff.
They'll change the name, watch it.
Again?
The Executive Office of Housing Livable Communities.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is.
All the blasting one we previously had discussed.
Well, excuse me. Do you need to strike 15?
No, because no, it's fine. It's fine the way it is.
But we shouldn't know where they are.
As long as they do them before.
No, it's just, those were just like when they had to give them to us.
Yeah.
The ninth in sequence.
Yeah.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's just, and depending on how it sells, it may be in
Yeah.
different places.
Sure, I thought it was like number 9.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a phased development,
Okay.
so it's gonna be.
Got it.
And what I'm gonna get them, you're gonna get them both at once
Yeah,
somewhere.
no, I just thought we were demarcating specifically.
Yeah.
And if you do the 4 units, the four clusters, it happens right away.
Yeah.
Right.
Depending on how they sell it, they sell. So.
Yep.
Thank you.
The 3 clusters. Excuse me.
Nothing on the shared driveways. This is something that was already agreed upon.
Yeah.
26.
Well, that's on the next page.
Yeah, 26 is on the next page. Sewerage.
Oh, I don't have that page.
Oh,
So how
I-
did you word that? Forgive me.
So that was proposed from the DPW.
Which I'm fine with it, and actually, the more that I think about it, let's put it out there and see what happens.
Okay.
If it ends up causing a problem, I'll come back and amend the plan to do it on site. So once I saw that, I thought, let's see.
Okay.
I don't
That
think there-
gets it out there.
I don't think there will be a problem, but I
Yeah.
totally understand.
Yeah. Thank
And
you,
then
Jeff.
Also, I have another one here.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Thank
want
you.
the applicant to have the information? Come on.
No.
I got it, yeah.
I've got everything but.
No worries.
But, I've been using Ann's cheat sheet, so, which now I've written on, and I need.
27, you saw the changes that the DPW had proposed on that one.
Yep,
Kind of just.
and that's fine.
Yeah, okay.
That makes sense.
So 20, traffic mitigation. So,
And those were things that we highlighted back in the Vanessa report.
yeah.
That's
correct.
fine.
But I just wanted to put that into the actual
Yep.
special conditions so that, there weren't, there is a reference to the actual traffic, impact assessment.
Yep,
So there is some recommendations in there that the applicant would be responsible for.
that's right.
And then these additional 2 were something that the.
We agreed to.
DPW had told us that you had already previously.
That's right.
agreed
And again, given that, the amount of time that's lapsed, and I think Ken and I are the only ones that will remember some of this stuff at this point, it's good that you have it commemorated.
Is the
I
language?
live somewhere else, that's why.
You look at
it's
line
using
31.
Yeah. I'm picking on
Oh,
Ken.
are we too early on? Where are we? We just did 28, right?
to. No,
29,
29, 30, and 31.
They're all done.
Yeah, I think we're done.
Wait, I want to talk about number 31.
Yep.
You changed that.
It says develop to resurface damaged portions of railroad.
That's right.
Make it clear that's.
Result.
Oh, thank you.
Damaged.
That's what I was looking for.
Yep.
That's what I was
Yep.
looking. Thank you.
Yep,
Very good.
so developers resurface damaged.
Because I didn't
portions
want
of
it to be
railroad
like a free for all.
As a result of the
Okay.
proposed project.
Perfect. That's what I was looking for. Thank you. All right.
And then the other 3 are stuff that we had previously discussed at the public hearing as well.
All right. Now.
All looks good to me.
Excuse me, I don't mean to butt in. Can I just ask a question in regards to special condition number 11 with the regards to the boulders instead of the split rail fence?
No. Yeah.
And I don't mean that this is going to happen as part of this project. It's just has happened to the commission in the past that the boulders may or may not be of a size that deters people from going over and doing items. So this is why I made the comment of wanting the split rail fence at the last meeting. And also that the fact that whoever is taking the property should be the one that's, that their concerns and requests should be made and put into the consideration for the decision, as we're the ones that are buying the property and we have to deal with these, any violations that occur. So if we could kindly just amend that condition to just state that if boulders were to be used or a split rail fence, that beyond just the signage, that those items would also be approved by the conservation agent or designation of the commission?
Mr. Chairman, may I ask a question?
Yes, please,
This brings
Joe.
up a point that I have a fair amount of experience with, in that I manage condominiums that were up against conservation land. What we worked out with the developer, and they went forward and done it on a lot of different properties, is homeowners documentation. Homeowners signed off at the closing on a list of things that explain to them, and it goes to record. All of a sudden, the neighbors became the people working on behalf of the conservation. Something physical, a fence, okay? I can move a boulder. I got a machine I can rent for 4 hours. I can move a boulder.
Right.
Okay? So you want buy-in from the owners. These are folks who are gonna put some money into their house. So I would ask that a physical barrier might be helpful, but an educational barrier.
No, and
The
we're happy to do
sales
that.
office, where it becomes a document that they read and sign in the closing. And that's how we solve that
Plus,
problem.
we're gonna have conservation markers and granite bounds. It's gonna be very hard to cheat. And it's
still
a
be cheap,
handful of lots.
but-
It is a handful of lots on this side.
Yeah.
It really
I
is.
only speak as, from experience in town on other properties, so that's the only reason why I'm asking for that.
Yeah. No, but I'll make certain it's really very, very clear. And again, it's only a handful of lots, Heather. Most of the lots are on the Fish and Wildlife side. And Pat and I had worked that thing out 25 years ago, but on that very issue. But we'll make certain it's very well delineated on the ground, and I'll make certain that it's clear on stuff they have to sign in on with the master deed.
There's something you just said, so,
Yeah, that's what he
yeah, I just caught that.
What's that?
So you're saying that the boulders will only be along the properties?
No.
Along.
No. Years ago, we worked that out.
Okay, that's why I wanted to ask the question. 'Cause
Yeah, oh no.
I didn't know if I misinterpreted.
No, you did. No, it was the old plan.
Okay.
It was something Pat and I
So-
worked out.
But boulders will be all along.
All around,
Okay.
all around.
Are we adjusting the language on number 11 or not?
I don't think you have to.
I mean, so the way it's written now, I'll read
It's
it.
or.
There shall be a split rail fence or boulders to demarcate the open space line along the back of the homes. There shall also be signage stating open space beyond this point, no mowing or dumping, or similar wording approved by the conservation agent and
And the town planner. And if you wanna include the type of demarcation being subject to the approval of you guys, so the size of the boulders, I'm fine with that.
I think that's what she's actually
Yeah,
asking.
and which I'm fine with that. That would be just perfect.
I appreciate that, thank you.
Yeah, no, because I mean,
Yeah.
Heather
And
and
you
Danny.
worked this out over
yeah.
years with the Fish and Wildlife, this is I've only spoken
So what
about
is
this at 2 or 3 meetings, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, should we switch about it was along the back of the homes as what? As approved by? As
Yeah.
Yeah.
As approved by.
the conservation agent?
And the town planner.
Conservation agent and the town planner.
Yes.
All right.
I won't say anything else because Marion needs to go home.
Yeah, we all do. We all do. So,
Special permit first? Yes, so,
Yes, such.
no.
There's a comment, I believe, in the room.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes, please.
Stephanie?
Stephanie had 14 Wright Road. I just have 3 quick questions.
Can you just come up to
You
the
need
front?
to come.
Yeah, the microphones need to hear you, Stephanie. Good evening.
Where's your mother? She went to work at 5:45
Oh,
in the
okay.
morning,
Well,
so
tell her I
she's
said hello.
probably in bed. Are the hours of operation Monday through Friday 7 to 7 and 8 to 3? Is that normal for a development? That just seems very late.
And it actually won't be that late. He
Yeah.
never works
I
that late.
don't
They
live-
cut out at 3.
Okay, that's what I
Yeah.
figured, but like 7 o'clock p.m.
Yeah, and
Like
they
if I was
never
sitting
work that late.
outside having dinner and listening to construction, I'm far enough away where it wouldn't immediately impact me, but plenty of neighbors up the street.
Just so you know that's part of like what the town allows.
Okay. Town
So
allows
we
that.
don't we don't
Okay.
regulate that, but they've actually regulated themselves to a more stricter time. So it's not going to be from
Perfect.
it's not going to be December.
Yeah. The same tree protection from the Lincoln Hill,
Yeah.
like when the lot is being cleared
Uh-huh.
and the houses that it kind of goes behind on Wright Road,
Uh-huh.
are those trees all going to be cut down like right up to people's boundaries?
Oh, God, no. I mean,
There's
if you
gonna
looked
be
at
a
the plan, there's a
Yeah, let
map.
me pull up the plan.
Well, it's hard to.
Stephanie may not know that there's actually conservation land
Yeah.
between Wright Road and the project now.
Yeah, part of the whole design was to make
Yeah.
it so you wouldn't see it from like your house.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah.
So all this dash line shows that that's where the limit of work stops.
And
so
Wright
there's-
Road is the line below.
Yep, Light Road is
Way
down
down
here.
Okay.
And that property that runs along that side,
Yeah.
in order to give mass fish and wildlife street
Mm-hmm.
access, that is conservation land.
That's
So
all,
it's
all the way
fully
down.
wrapped in a conservation
Yeah.
Okay,
land now.
What
so
we did,
people's
yeah.
houses won't be, like,
They
again,
won't be
I'm
right
far
against
enough.
it.
I think I'm
Natural.
far enough in the beginning of the road where it wouldn't affect me personally, but
Won't affect
again,
anybody.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, they won't be able to see.
Okay.
I mean,
Nobody will,
it-
yeah.
Maybe during the winter, maybe winter time you might be able
Right.
to see
Some of the back of the house,
Right.
but you won't.
Yeah.
Right, okay. And my last thing, and I know this has been a hot button topic, but what are the Cliff Note versions of the traffic mitigation recommendations? Just
They're actually
very-
pretty simple, yeah.
Yeah. I'm trying to see, do I
We didn't
have-
want to improve it to death, because if you improve Wright Road,
Right.
it becomes a speedway.
Yeah,
So it was the intersection with Snake Hill Road, some sight distance stuff, some flashing light funding out by Sandy
At the
Pond
at
Road.
the beach.
Yeah, and if I recall correctly, repaving damaged portions, and that was it.
yeah, not,
It's going to maintain the country
Yeah.
lane
yeah.
all the way down. Edgeway has all the way down.
But
So,
the thing he identified at
I'm
the
gonna pull
intersection,
it up really quick.
sight distance stuff that
Yeah.
needs to be attended to.
Yeah.
And I think there was
There's a
signage.
couple of things, yeah. It's not, there's not a lot of big things that was from the peer review that came out of it.
Not big physical stuff.
Yeah.
It was at the intersection and signage.
Just
as I've lived on Wright Road, 12 Wright Road for many years, and now 14 Wright Road, basically my entire life.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Besides when I went away to school and a couple of years in Lunenburg. But I live on the straightaway, and I literally last summer, a car was going 70 miles an hour up the straightaway, and I was outside, and so we went up the street, and I called the police. You know, I'm like, because in preparation of more of that in the future. So I don't know if there's a way. I know that the police have already reviewed it, but if there can be some communication somewhere between more patrolling, more speed traps, more anything, because
And
you're
I
gonna
don't think
have-
there's a posted speed.
there is across the street from my driveway,
There is?
or at least there used to be. I don't know
Huh.
if I'm just so used to seeing it that I don't notice.
I never noticed
25, because it was for my friend and I,
Yeah.
slow children. She lived across the
Yeah.
street. So that sign was there for many, many years, but many, many years, you don't know if they're still there, if they're gone. Improve signage, improve patrols. You know, this is forever changing the character of our neighborhood in terms of traffic. And our neighborhood is made up of many, many longtime residents. Talk to anyone, their roots go back to the 40s when it was short acres. You know, if whatever we can do to preserve the integrity of that quaint pond neighborhood with the addition of all these houses and 400 plus extra vehicles, just to help keep the traffic at a minimum speed, you know.
Just to clarify, it's not 400 vehicles. It's those are, if you're talking about how many trips.
Trips, 400 up and downs the street. And that's not including Amazon, UPS, trash, utilities. You know, there's going to be a lot of extra.
Yeah, so
And I know we touched upon it, and I know
so the
it.
traffic review did takes that into account.
Yeah, but I just, again, I'm just.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, we can take another look at pavement markings. Aren't there some pavement markings that are used in some places that, like, it looks like a speed bump, but it's not? There's ways to slow traffic down, other than just putting a speed limit sign. We can take a look at that in the process.
No.
Other mitigation, we can't do that. Well, the town can do it.
The town can, but the
So we
planning
can-
board does not have the
so I
authority
could
to
ask the
require
town.
a mitigation arbitrarily.
You might get 4 other members of the town to help sign your petition very quickly.
Yeah. But so the town, if they wanted to look at that, they could. But the planning board has no authority to arbitrarily create a mitigation.
Yeah, and I would also ask Chief and Assistant and Deputy Chief, we'd be more than happy to hear from you about this.
Yeah, I think my mom has already
Yeah,
Okay.
they'd be
reached
more than
out to
happy
them,
to
and
begin.
I
Folks.
definitely.
It's getting late.
Yeah, so and just so that you know, some of the mitigations were, the big ones were, vehicles exiting the project's site should be placed under a stop control sign, and there would be a line there. All signs and pavement markings to be installed with the project should conform to applicable standards of the MUTCD. ADA compliance, signs and landscaping be installed as part of the project with intersection site triangle areas for the project site driveways should be designed and maintained as not restricted lines of sight, and then also for snow windows, making sure that no line of sight. A welcome packet be included as part of the application, from the applicant to the people who are buying the house. Encourage the use of public transportation, and the property management will make available public transportation schedules. And the property management will provide information available pedestrian and bicycle facilities in vicinity. So those were the recommendations from the third-party peer review.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Tell your mother I said hi.
I will. Thank you.
Do you have any other public comment or questions? Yes. Marion.
I'm Marion Stoddard, and I want to once again thank the planning board members very much for all of your hard work and consideration that you have given this property, and your recognition of the significance of the area as a wildlife management area, or need for management, and that you've taken into consideration the fact that there are landing turtles that are nesting in this area, which are really endangered turtles, and that I think that it's very important that you have done that. I want to thank you for doing that, and that you are encouraging people, residents, and others to come and visit the area, and using existing trails. I think that's wonderful, and I think that people will really enjoy coming into the area and experiencing the wildness and the uniqueness of the area. So I want to thank you very much.
Thank you. Much appreciated. Do the special permit first?
Let me just make sure. Let's make sure that anyone on Zoom thinks the three dots. Participants.
We have Pauline and Beth with their hands up, but I didn't see who's first because we couldn't see it.
Really?
I'm just unmuted. It's Pauline, so I'll be really, really quick. And I'm going to just follow up on Stephanie's comment about the construction times. She and I had a communication earlier today. Mr. Collins proposes in his January 28th letter, construction 7 a.m. to 5 p.m., Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. Saturday. And I believe he made mention of that today without specifying the time. Mr. Ruiz's proposed order of conditions dated February 11th does not coincide with that. His hours are 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., Monday through Friday, Saturdays 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. I just would and that's on page 9, item 32. I'm not in a butter, but on behalf of my friends, the Hebs, and many others up on Wright Road, I would like to at least be assured the proposed order that you approve tonight is consistent with Mr. Collins' January 28th letter.
Thanks, Pauline. So just so that you know, these hours of operations are set forth within our bylaw and our regulations, so we cannot constrict that condition any more than what is allowed by right by the town. The applicant, at their will, if they want to, during construction, constrict themselves to those construction hours, they are allowed to. But we as a town cannot constrict them any more than what we currently allow by right.
Mr. Rees, I will disagree with you on that. Having
Fine.
served on the Board of Selectmen, I know that those hours can change. So I would suggest that you at least make an effort to do that.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Pauline.
It's Beth. That's
Oh,
next.
that's
with their
Beth?
hand- No, Beth
Okay.
has her hand up as well.
Beth?
Yep, good evening. I will be very, very brief. I do want to just reiterate Marion's comments and appreciate everyone who's been involved in this long process. And, I'm grateful for everyone's efforts and the outcome of the additional protected open space. Along those lines, though, I did not see anything in the decision about dark sky compliant lighting for all exterior light fixtures. And I do think this is an incredibly important consideration for a project like this. So is that already explicitly implied, or is it
Yes.
something?
Yeah,
Well, that's a matter of code now.
Yeah, it's required within our regulations.
Okay, great. Good to hear. Thank you so much.
As Mr. Payne says, it's now code.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay.
Anything else?
What's the order?
Anyone else wants to speak? No?
What's the order?
I want to
Okay.
say aye 3 times.
All right, so the way this will work is let's do the open space residential development decision.
With the 31 conditions.
Yes, so the way, I think, let's close the public hearing.
Do that first?
Move to close the public hearing. The open space residential development definitive subdivision and special permit for the Stratton Hill. I'm not going to read the whole thing.
Yeah, no, and the stormwater
And
management
I was
permit.
gonna say, I'm not gonna read this whole thing,
Yep.
and close the major stormwater management permit, public hearing.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. Ken?
Aye.
Julie?
Yes.
Nathan?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
Okay, and chair votes aye. So, good. I'd like to make a motion.
Okay, so the way, so
Okay, tell me how to
we
do this.
just motioned that. All right, let me just make sure. So Jeff. And Julie seconded. Okay, I just want to make sure I have this. All right, so let's read number.
I will do it.
Yep.
I've been looking, yes, here we go. Motion for approval of the site plan pursuant to subsections 320-10.1, open space residential development of Ayer zoning bylaws, subject to the standard conditions 1 through 47, and special conditions numbered 1
through 34.
1 through 34, as discussed this evening, in this decision and the following conditions presented at the meeting.
Seconded.
Further discussion? Hearing none. Ken?
Yes.
Julie?
Yes.
Nathan?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
Chair votes aye.
Thank you.
We're almost there.
Motion for approval of the use special permit for duplexes within the A1 zoning district pursuant to subsection 320-3.4, special permit subject to the standard conditions 1 through 47 and special conditions numbered 1 through 34 in this decision and the following conditions presented at the meeting.
Seconded.
There you go.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. Ken?
Yes.
Julie?
Yes.
Nathan?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. So now we have to go through the major stormwater permit, right?
Correct.
Okay. Oops. Okay. Some of these are redundant with what we discussed in the OSRD, right, with the conditions. How do you want to go through this?
Yeah, so the way I think what we'll do is we'll make the vote on the approval of the stormwater management permit with the standard conditions in, here, and the special conditions numbered 1. So the problem, the one thing we'd have to add is, because there is a special condition that we carry over in this decision because it's a stormwater management permit.
Yep.
So there is one condition there.
This one's in section 5?
Yep. So what I would say is, because this one has an additional special condition that the other one does not.
But
But if you just reference as
Yeah.
written.
Yes, as written,
Yeah.
plus the special conditions.
That's right.
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
so special conditions numbered, and I just want to make sure I get all the the numbering correct. It's numbers 1 through 41?
Then
No, 44.
Yep.
1 through 44 plus
Plus the lot, there's only one special condition
Plus-
delineated here.
a
That's what you're
special
talking about.
condition
Number one,
number 1. Okay.
there's no other special conditions. Well,
So,
we have a
but
discussion period.
I'll attach these no matter what.
Seconded, yep.
Oh, did I make the motion?
Yes.
Oh, I
You did.
I did? No, I didn't.
Yeah, I thought so. I heard it.
Oh, no, you did.
I
You're
didn't.
right.
That's not made a motion.
I didn't make
So
it.
moved.
Hasn't made a motion.
Go ahead.
I want to make the motion.
Yeah, okay.
Motion for approval of the site plan pursuant to subsection 245-5 and 6, stormwater management of air and general bylaws, subject to the standard conditions and special conditions numbered 1 through 44, plus special condition number 1 in this decision and the following conditions presented at the meeting.
34.
Seconded. That was beautiful.
It really
Discussion.
was.
So, discussion, yes, now we're in this.
The standard conditions are basically identical to
Yeah.
a subdivision
Yeah,
approval.
yeah. Basically, but there's some that were, the USPS one was just not included in the stormwater one.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. Ken?
Aye.
Julie?
Yes.
Nathan?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
Chair votes aye.
Well, thank you.
All right. Mr. Collins.
Thank you.
Whoa!
I don't know.
I have one
Hey,
last.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to make this meeting any longer, but the motion that was made to close the hearing was only for the subdivision and the stormwater.
No, that's
nothing
right, no.
was made for the special permit.
They did them all.
No, they did all
did.
three.
We did. We did.
Did you? Oh, wait, I'm sorry, I just missed it, thank you.
Yep, yep.
Thank you,
All
Heather.
three.
It's just getting late.
Yep, nope, I get it.
Nathan's up.
Can we,
No, Nathan.
Nathan had a question.
I'm sorry.
This may be the last time we see Mr. Collins.
Oh, no.
No, it won't be. Oh, no, come on. Are you kidding?
I'll save my question if you're coming back.
Well, no, ask, you might as well ask it. You never know.
Hey,
I might see you. We might be seeing you.
Yeah.
We hope to see you often, but
Thank you.
I'll just get.
Go ahead, Nathan.
We've never had somebody here with so much experience. and
Oh,
so
well, aren't
much
you so kind?
enthusiasm for development. At least I've not.
Seconded.
It's been a long process.
Oh, it has been.
Other applicants may not have the capacity that you do to pursue this process. I would appreciate greatly if you would send at least one recommendation to Danny of how we could improve the process.
Oh, I'm more than happy to.
That's
And
great.
I'll tell you, given that most of my work is elsewhere, I really am more than happy to act as a resource on stuff that I'm not involved in on a pro bono basis. I happen to love this town. I own property here. And it's, I've lived in Groton, but I'm very fond of Ayer. And yeah, I'm more than happy to act as a resource.
Thank you.
Yeah, and and I gotta say, when I first was here, before,
This
this
building had just
bylaw
been built.
yeah. No, but before the bylaw existed, I was appalled that yeah, and I'm so happy. I am so happy the direction that your bylaws have taken and the sentiments of people that are volunteering are taking. It really, Ayer is blessed to have you guys. You've put up with me for about 400 hearings. But it's wonderful to see things going in the right direction. You get the chance to develop a site once, generally. And so it really is important to do it right. It really is. And, really. So I'm very happy to act as a resource, and you're much too kind. Much too kind.
So, I want to ask you something, Danny. Is there anything
That is pressing.
urgent, or can we defer to next meeting on the project status update and the town
Nothing
meeting zoning?
nothing on
amendments?
project status update. Nothing. So the zoning, we'll discuss at a later date. It's nothing pressing. It just that everyone will know, like, I have 5 articles that are going to be coming before the board. And then CPTC conference that everyone
No, I
knows.
got the
Just
email
so you
about
know,
that today.
you got the email. Unfortunately, I will not be able to join you this year at CPTC.
I didn't even read
Oh,
the
that's
email,
too
I just
bad.
saw it.
You can't?
I didn't read the email.
There's some really good new ones. A lot of
Oh,
new
they're
stuff.
new ones?
A lot of new ones. I was very impressed.
All right.
And then the way it normally works, I mean, you'll file this at some point with the town
Yeah, so
clerk.
what I'll,
We'll let the appeal period run, then I come back with the covenant, but I'll get that to you. But then with the Mylars, and
Yep.
at some point in a month or so, we'll sign everything.
Yep.
Sounds beautiful.
exactly. Don't worry, I'll send you an email.
Yeah, I've got a question, because I am completely mystified.
Wait, guys, let Mr. Collins speak. Go ahead.
Well, it's not with the board. So, because this is new, this 2-screen thing. Why is it a mirror image?
I don't know.
We have
No
not, It's a
kidding.
question we have asked. We don't know. It's based
Like,
on.
what good is that?
It's
how-
so strange.
I know what I look like.
But the other thing that's very odd,
It's an iPhone.
when you're sitting back there, and
It's,
it's backwards, and then
yes.
you see the screen on the screen, and it's not backwards. It's very disconcerting.
Yep.
Very disconcerting.
It's done by the kids.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you
Move to
so
adjourn.
much.
Good night.
Thank you.